The house is quiet, and the world outside has surrendered to the deep blue of the late hour. Your phone, that glowing portal of connection and distraction, lies dark and silent on the table. But in the theater of your mind, the show is just beginning, and it's a rerun, the same one that played last night and the night before. A conversation is replayed, meticulously. Every word, every pause, every subtle shift in tone analyzed for a meaning that was perhaps never there. A face materializes against the back of your eyelids. So clear, so vivid, it feels more real than the room you are sitting in. You feel the ghost of a touch, you hear the echo of a laugh, and the cycle begins again. This is the haunting, the state of being mentally tethered to someone, a prisoner held captive not by chains of iron, but by threads of memory and thought. You are here, in the present moment, yet you are not. You are lost in the labyrinth of yesterday, circling the image of a person who has taken up residence in your consciousness, rent-free, refusing to leave. This experience, this relentless mental occupation, is not a sign of personal failure or a unique form of weakness. It is one of the most common, yet least understood, forms of suffering in our modern world. It is a silent affliction that drains the color from the present moment, making the taste of your morning coffee bland, the warmth of the sun on your skin feel distant, the voices of those who are actually with you sound muffled. It is a form of self-imprisonment, where the mind, in its desperate attempt to hold on to something, or to solve an unsolvable past, ends up caging itself. We call it not being able to stop thinking about them, but it is a far deeper phenomenon, a profound entanglement of ego, memory, desire, and sorrow. But what if this haunting was not a life sentence? What if it was not a random curse, but a predictable mechanism of the human mind, a mechanism that was observed, understood, and mapped out thousands of years ago? Long before the complexities of our current age, the ancient wisdom of Buddhist philosophy looked directly into the heart of this exact human condition. It saw this clinging, this mental fixation, not as a flaw, but as a fundamental process that, when misunderstood, leads to immense suffering. This path we are about to walk together is not about finding a magic trick to erase a memory, or a brute force technique to suppress a thought. Such methods are futile, like trying to flatten a wave with an iron. Instead, this is an invitation to a deeper journey, a journey of gentle, compassionate investigation. We will explore not how to forget them, but why the mind refuses to let go in the first place. We will learn to sit with the thought, to understand its nature, and in doing so, to dissolve its power over us, finding a freedom that is not based on absence, but on profound, unshakable inner peace. To begin our journey of untangling the mind, we must first name the very thread that creates the knot. In the ancient language of the Buddha's teachings, this thread is called upadana. The word translates as clinging, grasping, or attachment. When you find that a person has become a persistent echo in the chambers of your mind, you are experiencing the profound power of upadana. It is the ghost in the machine, the invisible force that binds you to a memory, an idea, a feeling. This is the very heart of the issue, the foundational reason why that person cannot seem to leave your head. Upadana is the stickiness of the mind. Think of your mind as having a natural Velcro-like quality. This isn't a defect, it's a feature that was designed for our survival. In our distant past, the ability to cling to vital information was essential. Our ancestors needed to remember, with vivid intensity, the location of a clean water source, the appearance of a poisonous plant, or the social cues of a trusted ally versus a dangerous rival. The mind learned to attach strongly to experiences that were linked to pleasure and survival, and to hold on to experiences linked to pain and threat, replaying them to avoid future danger. This mechanism of clinging served us well in the physical jungle. But today, we live in a far more complex psychological jungle. The same survival mechanism that helped us cling to the location of ripe fruit now causes us to cling to the memory of a lover's smile with a desperate, painful intensity. The same system that warned us of a predator now replays a painful rejection or a harsh word on an endless loop, treating the emotional wound as a life-threatening injury that must be constantly monitored. The tool has become a tyrant, a padana, in the context of our inner world, is this survival instinct gone awry. It is the mind doing what it was designed to do, but in a domain where its actions no longer lead to safety, but to suffering. It clings to the mental image of that person because it mistakenly believes that by holding on, by re-examining, by reliving, it is somehow protecting you, or solving something, or perhaps even magically recreating a moment of happiness that is long gone. It doesn't realize it is only strengthening the bars of a cage you are building for yourself. The person who occupies your thoughts is not, in reality, the person themselves. The actual person is out in the world. A complex, ever-changing being of whom you have no real knowledge in this present moment. The person you cannot stop thinking about is a creation, a phantom built by your own mind. It is a mosaic pieced together from fragments of memory, gilded with layers of desire, and shadowed by your fears. You are not clinging to them. You are clinging to your own mental statue of them. Apadana is the force that makes you worship this statue, polishing it daily with your thoughts, reinforcing its importance, until it feels more real and more significant than the living, breathing world around you. There is a classic Buddhist metaphor that describes the untrained mind as a restless monkey, swinging wildly from branch to branch in a vast forest. One moment, it's on the branch of a memory from childhood. The next, it leaps to a worry about tomorrow's meeting. Then it swings to a passing sound it hears outside the window. It is a state of constant, chaotic motion. When we are haunted by the thought of someone, it is as if this monkey has found a very particular branch. This branch might be dripping with the sweet, addictive honey of past pleasures, a perfect memory that you return to again and again. Or it might be a branch covered in sharp, bitter thorns of a painful memory, a betrayal, a loss. For whatever reason, the monkey becomes obsessed with this single branch. It refuses to let go. It wraps its limbs and tail around it, forgetting that there is an entire, infinite forest of experience available in the present moment. It starves itself of new life, new air, new light, because it is fixated on either reliving the sweetness or trying to understand the bitterness of that one single branch. The path to freedom is not about trying to violently chop the branch off, for that only creates more struggle and noise. The path is to gently, patiently teach the monkey that it has the power to simply unclench its fist, to release its grip, and to find peace not on any particular branch, but in the quiet space between them. Here, we must make a vital distinction, one that can be both difficult and liberating to accept. The state of apadana, this obsessive clinging, is not love. In the Buddhist tradition, true love is called metta, or loving kindness. Metta is a boundless, unconditional wish for the well-being of all beings, including the person you are thinking of, and very importantly, including yourself. Metta is like the sun, which shines its warmth freely in all directions, without demanding that the flowers turn a certain way or that the planets orbit closer. It is an open hand, offering warmth and wishing well, regardless of whether that well-being includes you. It is a feeling that liberates both the giver and the receiver. Upadana, on the other hand, is a clenched fist. It is the gravity of a black hole. It says, I need you for my happiness. My peace depends on your actions. Your presence validates my existence. It is a transactional state, rooted in a feeling of lack within the self. While it may wear the mask of love, its energy is one of desperation and control. The haunting you feel, the obsessive loop of thought, is not the radiant light of metta. It is the painful pull of upadana. Understanding this is the first step toward transforming the energy. The goal is not to stop caring, but to purify that caring, to transform the clenched fist of attachment into the open hand of genuine, liberating love. There's a timeless Zen story that perfectly illuminates this state of mental bondage. Two monks, one senior and one junior, were on a long pilgrimage. They walked for many miles in silence until they came to a river where the current was swift and strong. On the bank stood a young woman in fine clothes, hesitating, afraid to cross for fear of ruining her dress and being swept away. Monastic rules were incredibly strict. A monk was forbidden from making physical contact with a woman. The junior monk, seeing the situation, immediately averted his eyes, his mind churning with the rules. He stood stiffly, a model of pious observance. The senior monk, however, simply observed the reality of the moment. He saw a person in need of help. Without a word, he walked over to the young woman, lifted her into his arms, and carried her through the rushing water to the other side. He gently set her down. She bowed in gratitude, and he continued on his journey. The junior monk, flabbergasted, scrambled across the river and hurried to catch up. For the next several hours, he walked behind his senior, his mind a raging storm of judgment and confusion. He was scandalized. How could his master so flagrantly break such a sacred precept? The silence grew heavier and heavier, until finally, near sunset, the junior monk could bear it no longer. He rushed forward and confronted the senior monk, his voice trembling with indignation. "Brother," he exclaimed, "how could you do that? You know we are forbidden from even touching a woman, yet you lifted her in your arms and carried her. How could you break your vows?" The senior monk stopped walking and turned to his young companion. A soft, compassionate smile touched his lips. He looked at the junior monk and said, gently, "Brother, I left that woman by the riverbank hours ago. Is it you who is still carrying her?" This story is a mirror for our own minds. The person you cannot stop thinking about, the event that you endlessly replay, is the woman by the river. The interaction itself, the moment in time, is finished. It is in the past. It has been set down. But like the junior monk, you are still carrying her. You are carrying the weight of the memory, the burden of the unanswered questions, the sting of the injustice, the ache of the longing. The senior monk practiced true non-attachment. He engaged with the present moment, did what was necessary with compassion, and then released it completely, leaving his mind free and unburdened. The junior monk became a victim of upadana, clinging not even to the woman herself, but to his ideas about her, his judgments, his rigid adherence to rules over compassion. His suffering was entirely self-created, a product of his own sticky mind. And so, the first question on this path of release is not, "How do I get them out of my head?" The question is this: who have you been carrying long after you have crossed the river? The pain is not in the memory itself, but in the unconscious act of picking it up again and again and again. Recognizing that you are the one doing the carrying is the first, most powerful step toward learning how to finally set your burden down. And this, naturally, leads us to the next, even more profound question. If I am the one doing the carrying, then who, or what, is this I that feels so burdened? To answer that, we must venture deeper into the very nature of the self. Having recognized the sticky, clinging nature of the mind, which we call upadana, we are led to a question of immense importance. Who, exactly, is the one doing the clinging? When a thought of that person arises, and a pang of sorrow or anger follows, who is it that feels this pain? The answer, according to the deep psychological insights of Buddhism, is a phantom. It is a ghost in the machine of our consciousness, a relentless storyteller that we have mistaken for our true self. This ghost is the ego. In Sanskrit, it is called ahakara, a beautifully precise term which means the I maker. It is not a stable, solid entity that exists somewhere in your brain or your heart. Rather, it is a continuous, moment-to-moment process, a mental function dedicated to creating and defending the story of I. This story of I is a masterpiece of collage art. It is not a single coherent narrative, but a scrapbook, pasted together with fragments from your entire life. A piece of it is the praise you received in the 3rd grade, another is the sting of your first heartbreak. It is constructed from the labels you wear: your profession, your nationality, your role as a parent, a child, or a friend. It is built from your memories, your beliefs, your accomplishments, your failures, your hopes for the future, and your regrets about the past. It is the voice in your head that says, "I am a successful person," or "I am unlucky in love," or "I am not good enough." This constructed identity, this ghostwriter of your internal monologue, is what we call the ego. It is profoundly fragile, precisely because it is not real. It is a fiction, and like any fictional character, it requires constant validation from the outside world to continue believing in its own existence. Now, let us place this fragile ego into the context of your mental haunting. The reason the thought of a particular person has such power over you is almost always because that person became a primary architect of your ego's story. They were not just a person in your life. They were a load-bearing wall in the structure of your identity. Perhaps their presence made you feel intelligent, or desired, or safe, or complete. Their attention and affection became a crucial ingredient in the recipe of me. They affirmed the story you wanted to believe about yourself. When that person left, or changed, or betrayed your expectations, they did not just leave a void in your daily life. They took a sledgehammer to that load-bearing wall. The entire structure of the story of I began to tremble. The obsessive thinking that follows is the ego's emergency response. It is a frantic, desperate attempt to perform damage control on its own narrative. The endless looping of conversations is the ego searching for clues, trying to understand why its story was so violently edited without its permission. The constant questioning, what did I do wrong? How could they do this to me? What does this say about me? Is the sound of the eye maker in a state of panic, trying to patch the gaping hole in its own script. The obsession is not a testament to the other person's importance, but to the ego's terrifying sense of its own dissolution. It clings to the memory of that person because the memory, however painful, is a reminder that the story was once intact. The pain of remembering feels safer to the ego than the terrifying emptiness of not knowing who I am without them. In this light, the person you are obsessed with can be seen as a powerful and distorting mirror. When things were good, you looked at them and saw a magnificent reflection of yourself. You saw the version of you that was happy, loved, and whole. You fell in love with that reflection. The warmth you felt was not just for them, but for the beautiful me that they mirrored back to you. When they departed, they took the mirror with them. And your mind, haunted by the loss of that beautiful reflection, now desperately seeks it, rummaging through memories to get one more glimpse of that happy self. Alternatively, if the relationship ended in pain and rejection, they became a broken, cruel mirror. In their actions, you saw a reflection of a self that was flawed, unwanted, or foolish. This distorted, painful image is horrifying to the ego. And like a driver unable to look away from a crash on the side of the road, the mind becomes transfixed by this ugly reflection. It replays the painful moments over and over, mesmerized by the horror of the me it sees in the broken glass. The profound and liberating truth here is that your obsession has remarkably little to do with the actual, complex, flawed human being they are. It has everything to do with the reflection of yourself that you saw and lost in their presence. Freeing yourself, therefore, is not about shattering the mirror. It is about realizing that you were never the reflection in the first place. This realization is not just an intellectual concept, it can be a practice. You can begin to watch for the ego's voice as you would watch for a specific type of bird. When the familiar storm of thoughts about that person begins to gather, get quiet and listen. Can you hear the subtle signature of the eye maker? It might be the voice of pride, whispering, "They will regret this. They'll never find someone like me again." It might be the voice of victimhood, crying, "Why does this always happen to me? I am always the one who gets hurt." It could be the voice of fear, predicting, "I will be alone forever now," or the voice of desire, pleading, "If only they would come back, I could be happy again." The practice is simply to notice this voice without judgment, without condemnation. You can even label it gently in your mind. Ah, this is the sound of the ego. This is the eye maker, telling its stories again. This simple act of mindful recognition is incredibly powerful. It creates a space between the storyteller and the listener. In that moment of noticing, you shift from being the protagonist completely lost in the drama, to being the audience, the awareness that is watching the play unfold. You are no longer the story. You are the space in which the story is happening. And in that space lies the seed of your freedom. There is a famous Zen parable that speaks to this. A highly educated university professor, a man renowned for his knowledge, traveled to visit a wise old Zen master to inquire about the nature of Zen. The master welcomed him graciously and, as is custom, offered him tea. He placed a cup in front of the professor and began to pour. He filled the cup to the brim, but then he did not stop. The tea began to overflow, spilling out onto the saucer and then onto the table. The professor watched with growing alarm until he could stand it no longer. "Stop," he yelled. "The cup is full. No more can go in." The Zen master stopped pouring, looked at the professor, and said, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions, preconceptions, and stories. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup? The ego is this full cup. The mind haunted by a person is a cup overflowing with old stories, with judgments about who was right and who was wrong, with a fixed narrative about what should have been, with the thick, stale tea of me and mine. As long as the cup remains full, nothing new can enter. No peace, no healing, no new wisdom, no fresh air of the present moment. The practice of watching the ego, of recognizing its voice without believing its stories, is the beginning of the process of emptying your cup. It is the gentle, courageous act of pouring out the bitter, cold tea of the past, so that you can finally receive the warmth and nourishment of what is truly here, right now. This recognition of the ego and its stories, and the attachment it fuels, is essential. But these things do not arise out of nowhere. They are not isolated events. They are links in a much larger, intricate chain of cause and effect. To truly understand why the eye maker creates these painful narratives, we must now turn our attention to this profound and interconnected web of existence itself. We have now seen the sticky nature of the mind, the clinging we call upadana, and we have met the restless storyteller behind it, the eye maker or the ego. This leads us to a deeper, more fundamental question. Why does this whole painful process occur in the first place? Why does the mind cling? Why does the ego feel so threatened? The answer lies not in a single cause, but in a vast, interconnected web of causality that governs all of existence. This is the machinery of reality itself, and the Buddha gave it a name, Pratitya Samutpada, which translates as dependent origination or interdependent co-arising. This may sound like a complex philosophical term, but it is based on a principle of profound and elegant simplicity. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything arises in dependence upon other conditions. The law of dependent origination can be stated like this. When this exists, that comes to be. With the arising of this, that arises. And just as importantly, when this does not exist, that does not come to be. With the cessation of this, that ceases. This is not a mystical belief, but a deep observation of reality. A plant cannot exist without a seed, soil, water, and sunlight. A sound cannot exist without a vibrating object and a medium for the wave to travel through. In the very same way, the painful obsession you feel for another person does not arise from nothing. It is the end result of a precise, predictable, and observable chain of mental events. It is not a mysterious fog that descends upon you, but a fire for which you can trace every single preceding spark. Understanding this chain is the key to dismantling it. Let us walk through this chain reaction, using a simple, everyday example to see how a storm of obsession can be born from a single, harmless moment. Imagine you are walking down a street on a cool autumn afternoon. The air smells of rain and fallen leaves. Suddenly, you catch a whiff of a particular perfume or cologne in the air, the same one that person used to wear. This is the first link. Contact, phassa. Your sense of smell has made contact with an object in the world. At this stage, it is a neutral, raw piece of data. It is just a scent. Instantly, the second link arises, feeling, vedana. Before any conscious thought, a feeling tone emerges in your body and mind. It might be a sudden sharp pang of sadness. It could be a warm, wistful ache of nostalgia. It could even be a flash of anger. This feeling is pre-verbal, a raw, physical and emotional sensation. It happens so fast, it feels automatic and inseparable from the contact itself. Now, the third link engages. Perception, sanya. Your mind's recognition faculty immediately identifies the feeling and gives it a label, a story. It connects the scent to your vast database of memories. The mind says, "Ah, that is their scent. I remember the day we bought it. I remember how they smelled when they hugged me." Perception is the faculty that turns a neutral sensation into a personalized story. The scent is no longer just a scent. It is now freighted with meaning and memory. This is the critical juncture. Based on the story that perception has just created, the fourth and most pivotal link arises: craving or thirst. Tanha. If the memory was pleasant, a powerful craving arises. I wish they were here now. I wish I could feel that way again. I miss them so much. If the memory was painful, an aversion, which is the flip side of craving, arises. I hate that this is over. I hate that I can still be hurt by this. This is the engine of our suffering. It is the deep thirst for things to be different than they are, for the pleasant to be permanent, and for the unpleasant to be annihilated. Once craving takes hold, it rapidly solidifies into the fifth link, the one we have already met: clinging or grasping, upadana. This is no longer just a passive wish or thirst. This is active engagement. This is where you begin to fuel the fire. You consciously start to pull up other memories. You might pull out your phone to look at old pictures. You might imagine scenarios where you run into them again. You are now grasping at the thoughts, feeding the storyline, and refusing to let it go. You have moved from simply feeling a thirst to actively trying to drink from a mirage. This act of clinging leads directly to the next link: becoming. Bhava. Through your sustained grasping, you solidify a state of being. You become, in that moment and for however long it lasts, someone who is heartbroken, someone who is longing for the past, someone who is unjustly suffering. Your identity merges with the painful story, and the inevitable result of this becoming is the entire spectrum of what the Buddha called suffering, dukkha. The anxiety, the restlessness, the sorrow, the dissatisfaction, the ache in your chest. The whole painful universe of your obsession is now fully manifest, all born from a single whiff of perfume. Think of it like a small snowball at the very top of a vast snowy mountain. The initial sensory contact is just a single snowflake. It is tiny, light, and insignificant, but as it begins to roll, it picks up the snow of feeling. As perception gives it a story, it gathers more mass. Then craving gives it momentum, a powerful downward pull. By the time clinging kicks in, it is no longer a snowball, but a massive, thundering avalanche of emotion and obsessive thought, and you are right in its path, buried in the valley below. Our inner world is also like an intricate spider's web, shimmering and delicate. The links of dependent origination are the silken threads. When a single thought or memory of that person, like a fly hitting the web, strikes one corner, the vibrations are felt through the entire structure. Your posture might change, your stomach might clench, your breathing might become shallow, your mood might plummet. Nothing happens in isolation. The haunting is a systemic condition, not a localized one. Now, this may all sound like a deterministic trap, a message of hopelessness. If one link inevitably leads to the next, are we not just puppets in a causal chain? The answer is a resounding no. The teaching of dependent origination is not a prison sentence. It is the blueprint of the prison, which contains within it the precise location of the key. You do not have to stop the avalanche when it is a thundering wall of snow and ice. That is nearly impossible. The secret is to intervene much earlier, when it is still just a small, manageable snowball. The chain has weak points, and your power lies in exploiting them. The most accessible and powerful place for us to intervene is in the sacred pause between feeling Vedana and craving Tanha. A feeling will arise in response to a memory or a contact. You cannot stop this. It is a natural biological process. A wave of sadness or longing will wash through you. But your reaction to that wave is not predetermined. In that moment, you have a choice. The untrained mind reacts instantly, launching into craving or aversion, kicking the snowball into motion. But the mindful, trained mind can learn to simply observe. When the wave of sadness comes, you can watch it without judgment. You can acknowledge it. Ah, there is sadness. It feels like a tightness in my chest. It is a cold feeling. You simply witness it as a pure, impersonal sensation, without adding the second layer of story from the ego. And it's because they left me and my life is ruined. By observing the feeling without feeding it the fuel of craving, you cut the chain. You let the wave arise, crest and pass away without being swept out to sea by it. You let the snowflake melt under the gentle sun of your awareness before it ever has a chance to roll. This is the heart of mindfulness practice. It is the practice of inhabiting that sacred pause. The law that forges the chains of our mental prison is the very same law that can set us free. The haunting in your head is not a single, monolithic entity. It is a process, a chain reaction of dependent events. By understanding this chain, you cease to be its helpless victim and become an empowered participant, a wise scientist of your own inner world who knows exactly where to apply the antidote. But this raises a further question. The quality of our actions within this chain matters. What determines whether our choices forge another link of suffering, or whether they begin to dissolve the chain altogether? To answer this, we must now examine the profound law of action and consequence, the universal principle of karma. Having traced the intricate chain of dependent origination, we see how one mental event gives rise to another, leading from a simple sensation to a storm of suffering. We understand the how. But this understanding can feel incomplete, even mechanical, without exploring the quality and energy that drive the chain. This brings us to one of the most widely known, yet deeply misunderstood, concepts from Eastern wisdom, the law of karma. To truly grasp why you are haunted by this person, and more importantly, how to become free, you must re-examine everything you think you know about this universal principle. In the West, karma is often misinterpreted as cosmic justice, a system of reward and punishment meted out by an unseen judge, or as an unchangeable destiny, a fate that was sealed long ago. This is not the Buddhist understanding. The word karma literally means action, or more specifically, volitional action. It refers to any intentional action you perform with your body, your speech, or, most crucially for our purposes, your mind. The results or fruits that arise from these actions are called vipaka. The law of karma, therefore, is not a moral judgment from on high. It is a law of nature, as impersonal, as consistent, and as reliable as the law of gravity. It is the law of the harvest. If you plant seeds of corn, you will harvest corn. If you plant seeds of nightshade, you will harvest poison. The intention behind the action is the seed, and the life you experience is the harvest. Let us now hold the magnifying glass of karma over the painful obsession that occupies your mind. This state of being haunted, this relentless loop of thought and emotion, can be seen as a vipaka, a fruit that has ripened. To understand the fruit, we must look for the seeds. Where were they planted? They were planted by you throughout the entire course of the relationship and its aftermath. Every time you spoke a word with the intention of controlling or possessing the other person, you planted a karmic seed of attachment. Every time you performed an action rooted in selfish need rather than genuine care, you planted a seed of grasping. Most profoundly and most subtly, every time you sat alone and willingly indulged in obsessive thoughts, fantasies, or jealous ruminations, you were actively planting powerful mental seeds. The mind is a fertile garden. For months, or perhaps years, you may have been diligently cultivating this garden with seeds of dependency, seeds of unrealistic expectation, seeds of fear of loss, and seeds of identifying your happiness with another person. Now, the garden has matured, and you are living in the midst of its bitter harvest. The haunting is not a punishment. It is simply the natural, predictable outcome of the seeds that were planted. Seeing this is not meant to create guilt. Guilt is a useless emotion. The purpose is to awaken a sense of profound responsibility. It shifts you from the powerless position of a victim asking, "Why is this happening to me?" to the empowered position of an observer understanding. This is arising due to past causes and conditions. This understanding might initially feel like a weight. If your current suffering is the result of past actions, and the past cannot be changed, are you not then condemned to suffer? Herein lies the most liberating and hopeful message of karma. The past is like an arrow that has already been shot from the bow. It is flying through the air, and you cannot call it back. The seeds from yesterday are already in the soil. But you are the archer, standing here, right now, with a full quiver of new arrows. You are the gardener, standing in the present moment with a bag overflowing with new seeds. You have absolute, 100% agency over the karma you are creating in this very instant. Every moment is a choice, a new seed planted. When the painful thought of that person arises and you choose, even for a single second, to gently return your awareness to the feeling of your breath, you plant a golden seed of mindfulness. When a surge of anger or resentment courses through you and you choose to simply watch it without speaking or typing the angry message, you plant a powerful seed of patience. When you are drowning in self-pity and you choose instead to place a hand on your own heart and offer yourself a moment of compassion, you plant a radiant seed of self-love. The present moment is your karmic workshop. This very moment is the only point in time where you can change the entire trajectory of your life. You are not a prisoner of your past. You are the sole creator of your future, and you build that future with the actions you take right now. But what of the old, unwholesome seeds that are already in the ground? Are we simply doomed to wait for their bitter fruit to ripen? Not entirely. The Buddha offered a beautiful simile. Imagine you have a small cup of water, and you drop a large lump of salt into it. If you try to drink the water, it will be unbearably salty, undrinkable. The lump of salt is your past negative karma. The small cup is a mind that is undeveloped, reactive, and filled with ignorance. In such a mind, even a small amount of past negative karma can produce immense suffering. Now, imagine you take that very same lump of salt and you throw it into a great flowing river, like the Amazon or the Nile. Does the salt make the river undrinkable? The sheer volume of fresh, flowing water diffuses the salt to such a degree that its taste becomes completely unnoticeable. The great river is a mind that has been cultivated, a mind made vast and deep through the consistent practice of mindfulness, compassion, wisdom, and loving kindness. By generating a powerful, continuous stream of wholesome, positive karma in the present by pouring countless gallons of fresh water into the river of your consciousness, you mitigate the effects of the past. The old seeds may still sprout, but their fruit will be small and weak, their bitterness diluted by the overwhelming sweetness of your present actions. Your daily practice is the act of tending to this great river, ensuring it flows strong and clear. The ultimate testament to this transformative power is the story of a man named Angulimala. His name meant garland of fingers, for he was a terrifying serial killer who roamed the forests, murdering travelers and cutting off one of their fingers to add to the gruesome necklace he wore. He had killed 999 people, creating a debt of horrific, unimaginable karma. As he sought his 1,000th victim, he saw a lone figure walking peacefully, and he began to run, intent on murder. But no matter how fast he ran, he could not catch up to the serene walking figure of the Buddha. Exhausted and amazed, he called out, "Stop, monk." The Buddha, still walking, replied, "I have stopped, Angulimala. It is you who have not." In that moment, something broke open in Angulimala's mind. He realized the Buddha had stopped the cycle of violence and hatred, while he himself was still running on the wheel of rage and suffering. He threw down his weapons, bowed at the Buddha's feet, and, against all odds, was accepted into the monastic order. The path was not easy. When he went for alms, people who once feared him now threw stones and insults, and he would return battered and bleeding. This was the ripening of his past karmic fruit. But his inner state, cultivated through immense diligence and meditation, was one of unshakable peace and boundless compassion. He eventually became fully enlightened, a saint, an arahant. The story of Angulimala is a promise. It tells us that no matter how dark the past, no matter how many negative seeds we have sown, the power of a single moment of intentional, radical change can alter our destiny. The light of the present is more powerful than any darkness of the past. Therefore, the law of karma is not a doctrine of fate. It is the ultimate doctrine of freedom. It hands the steering wheel of your life directly back to you. The painful haunting that brought you here is a karmic result. Yes, but it is also a merciful alarm bell, a wake-up call urging you to start planting a different kind of garden. It is an invitation to become a conscious creator of your own experience. This, then, brings us to the most practical of questions. If we are to become conscious gardeners, what is the first and most fundamental seed we must plant? What is the single most important tool for beginning this work of transformation? The answer is something you possess right now, something you have had with you every moment of your life. It is the simple, profound, and life-giving anchor of your own breath. Having understood the great universal laws of dependent origination and karma, we see that our inner world is not a chaotic mystery, but a lawful process, and that we have the power to change its course by planting new, wholesome seeds in the present moment. This is a profound realization, but it can also feel abstract. It begs the question, what is the first seed? Where do we begin this work of inner gardening, this transformation of our own destiny? The answer provided by the Buddha is exquisitely simple, immediately accessible, and endlessly deep. The first step, the primary tool, and the ultimate refuge is the practice of anapanasati, the mindfulness of in and out breathing. Before you can navigate the stormy seas of your emotions and memories, you must first find an anchor. Before you can untie the intricate knot of your obsession, you must first steady your own hands. Anapanasati is this anchor, this steadying force. It is the gentle art of returning home to yourself over and over again. So let us for a moment move from the theoretical to the deeply practical. Let us learn how to practice. Find a posture that embodies a sense of dignity and ease. You can sit on a cushion on the floor, or sit upright in a chair with your feet flat on the ground. The key is for your spine to be relatively straight, allowing for alertness, but without being rigid or tense. Allow your hands to rest comfortably in your lap or on your knees. You can gently close your eyes, or if you prefer, leave them slightly open with a soft, unfocused gaze toward the floor in front of you. Now, bring the entire spotlight of your awareness to the physical sensations of your own breathing. Do not try to change your breath in any way. Do not force it to be deeper, or slower, or more spiritual. Your only task is to observe it, exactly as it is. Be a curious scientist discovering this phenomenon for the first time. You might choose to place your attention at the tip of your nostrils, feeling the subtle coolness of the air as it enters and the gentle warmth as it leaves. Or, you might prefer to rest your attention on your abdomen, feeling the gentle rise as you breathe in and the soft fall as you breathe out. Choose one of these anchor points and let your attention rest there, as lightly as a butterfly landing on a flower. When your breath is long, simply know, this is a long in breath. When it is short, simply know, this is a short out breath. That is all. You are not trying to achieve anything. You are simply arriving, right here, right now, in the felt reality of your own body. Why is this simple act so profoundly transformative? Why is the breath the chosen anchor for liberation? Firstly, the breath is always, unfailingly, in the present moment. Your mind is a masterful time traveler. It can spend hours lost in the curated museum of the past, re-examining memories of that person, or it can launch itself into the imagined cinema of the future, playing out scenes of hope or despair. The person who haunts you lives exclusively in these two realms, the unchangeable past and the non-existent future. But your breath cannot join you there. You cannot breathe yesterday's breath. You cannot take your next breath until this one is complete. To be fully with the breath is to be fully in the present. Each conscious in-breath is a radical act of stepping out of the ghost world of your thoughts and arriving in the living, breathing reality of right now. Secondly, the breath is the bridge that unites the mind and the body. Notice how your emotional state is perfectly mirrored in your breathing. When a painful memory strikes, your breath might become shallow, tight, or you might even unconsciously hold it. When you are calm, your breath is naturally slower, deeper, more rhythmic. This connection is a two-way street. While your turbulent mind can create chaotic breathing, you can consciously use your breath to soothe your turbulent mind. By gently returning your awareness to the natural, steady rhythm of your breathing, you send a powerful nonverbal signal to your entire nervous system. The signal says, you are safe. All is well. You can relax. You are using the simple physical reality of your body to calm the complex psychological storms of your mind. Thirdly, the breath is a perfectly neutral and trustworthy object of meditation. The memory of the person you are obsessed with is a highly charged object. It is soaked in story, emotion, desire, and regret. Trying to focus on it is like trying to find your balance by standing on the back of a wild horse. It is unstable and will throw you off immediately. The breath, however, is beautifully boring. It has no story. It has no opinion. It carries no emotional baggage. It is just air, entering and leaving your body. It is a safe harbor, a reliable friend who is always there, waiting patiently for you to return, offering you stability and peace without asking for anything in return. So, how does this work in the heat of the moment? A familiar face appears in your mind's eye. The familiar ache blossoms in your chest. What do? The untrained response is either to fight the thought, which gives it more energy, or to indulge it, which sends you spiraling down the rabbit hole. The mindful response is a three-step dance. Step 1. Acknowledge. Without judgment, you mentally note, the memory is here. The feeling of sadness has arisen. You greet it like an old familiar visitor. Step 2. Gently pivot. With the kindness you would use to guide a child, you gently, and without force, pivot the spotlight of your attention away from the story, and back to your anchor, the physical feeling of the air at your nostrils or the rising and falling of your abdomen. Step 3. Repeat. A few seconds later, your mind will have wandered back to the story. This is not a failure. This is not a sign that you are bad at meditating. This is the nature of the monkey mind. The practice is the act of noticing that you have wandered and gently, patiently, compassionately, bringing your attention back. Again and again and again. Each time you bring your mind back to the breath, you are performing one repetition of the most important exercise for your well-being. You are weakening the neural pathways of obsession and strengthening the neural pathways of mindfulness. You are casting another vote for your own freedom. Imagine your mind is a small boat on a vast, dark ocean at night. The obsessive thoughts are powerful waves, tossing you back and forth. The winds of sorrow and longing are howling, threatening to capsize you. You feel lost, disoriented, and hopeless. The practice of mindfulness of breath is the act of building a lighthouse on the shore of your own being. The breath is its steady, unwavering light. The light of the lighthouse does not stop the storm. The waves still crash, and the winds still howl. But now you have a reference point. No matter how violently you are tossed, no matter how disoriented you become, you can always look to the horizon and see that calm, consistent, gentle light. It reminds you where the land is. It gives you a direction. Each conscious breath is a turn of the rudder, slowly, patiently guiding your small boat out of the storm and back toward the safe harbor of the present moment. This practice is more than just a technique to cope with this particular pain. It is the cultivation of a lifelong friend and an unshakable refuge. By becoming intimate with your own breath, you are building a foundation of stability that will serve you in every moment of your life. And once this foundation is built, once the anchor is secure and you have learned to trust the light of your own awareness, you will find you have cultivated a new kind of courage. You are no longer terrified of the storm. And with this new stability, you are now prepared to do something even more transformative, to turn your attention, with compassion and wisdom, and look directly into the heart of the waves themselves. You are ready to observe your feelings without being drowned by them. With the steady anchor of the breath, we have found a place of refuge, a stable boat in the midst of a turbulent ocean. From this newfound place of stability, we can now cultivate the courage to do something truly radical. We can turn our compassionate attention away from the lighthouse on the shore and look directly into the face of the waves themselves. We can learn to watch our feelings without being consumed by them. This practice leads us to the heart of the Buddha's psychological insights, to the concept of Vedana, or feeling tone. Vedana is not what we typically think of as complex emotions like love, jealousy, or betrayal. It is something much more fundamental, more primal. It is the raw, unfiltered, pre-verbal sensation that arises the instant one of our senses makes contact with the world. It is the immediate ouch of a stubbed toe before the thought "I'm so clumsy" arises. It is the immediate ah of a warm sip of tea before the thought "this is relaxing" forms. Buddhist psychology classifies all of our countless experiences into three simple categories of Vedana: pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. Every single moment of your waking life is painted with one of these three tones. This feeling tone is the crucial pivot point in the chain of dependent origination. It is the spark that ignites the fire of craving and aversion, which in turn leads to the whole mass of our suffering. Our entire life is often an unconscious, desperate dance, choreographed by Vedana. We are relentlessly chasing pleasant feelings and desperately running away from unpleasant ones. The person who haunts your mind has become the most potent symbol in your life for these two forces. The memories of them are drenched in powerful feeling tones. When you remember the good times, the laughter, the intimacy, the validation, you experience a pleasant Vedana, and a powerful craving arises to have it back. You become an addict, seeking another hit of that good feeling. When you remember the bad times, the argument, the separation, the silence, you experience an unpleasant Vedana, and a powerful aversion arises. You are tormented by it, replaying it, trying to solve it, wishing desperately for it to go away. You are caught in a web, not by the person themselves, but by your own mind's addiction to their pleasant feelings and its phobia of the unpleasant ones. The practice of mindfulness of feelings, or Vedananupasana, is the way we begin to snip the threads of this web. It is a practice of radical intimacy with our own inner experience. The instruction is simple in theory but requires a gentle, persistent courage. You begin, as always, by grounding yourself in the anchor of your breath. Then, when a strong feeling connected to that person inevitably arises, a wave of deep longing, a hot spike of anger, a hollow ache of loneliness, you gently shift the spotlight of your attention. You shift it away from the story in your head, away from the movie of what they did and what I lost, and you bring it directly into your body to investigate the raw, physical sensation of the feeling itself. You become a compassionate scientist of your inner world. You ask gentle, curious questions. Where, precisely, in my body do I feel this loneliness? You scan your body. Is it a tightness in my throat that makes it hard to swallow? Is it a heavy, dense weight sitting in the center of my chest? Is it a cold, churning emptiness in my stomach? You are not looking for an intellectual answer. You are looking for a direct physical sensation. Then, you investigate its qualities, its texture. Is this sensation hot or cold? Is it sharp like a needle, or dull like a bruise? Is it vibrating, pulsing, tingling, or is it numb and still? Is it expanding, growing larger, or is it contracting, shrinking? You stay with this direct investigation of the raw data of the feeling, resisting the mind's powerful habit of immediately jumping back into the story, into the narrative of me and them. When you do this, something truly magical begins to happen. A space begins to open up. When you are lost in your thoughts, completely identified with your emotions, your inner world is collapsed. There is no space. The thought is I am sad. The identification is 100%. You are the sadness. It feels solid, all-encompassing, and permanent. But when you successfully shift your focus to observing the physical sensation in your chest, a profound disidentification occurs. Suddenly, there is not just one thing, there are two. There is the sensation of tightness in the chest, and there is the awareness that is calmly observing it. In that moment of pure observation, you are no longer the sadness. You become the vast, open, peaceful awareness in which a temporary, impersonal cloud of sensation, which we happen to call sadness, is passing through. This is the great liberation. You are not the weather. You are the sky. The sky is not afraid of storm clouds or thrilled by sunshine. It simply allows all weather to pass through its boundless space without being harmed or changed by it. By observing your feelings as pure sensation, you begin to realize your true nature as this vast, open sky of awareness. There is a profound parable the Buddha told about this practice. He said that in life, we will all inevitably be shot by a first arrow. This arrow represents the unavoidable pains of human existence. Someone will say a harsh word to you. You will experience loss. You will get sick. A relationship will end. This first arrow is the initial painful Vedana that arises from these events. It hurts. No amount of spiritual practice can make you entirely immune to the first arrow. However, the Buddha said, Most of us, immediately after being hit by the first arrow, proceed to shoot a second arrow directly into ourselves. This second arrow is our mental reaction to the first. It is the story we weave around the pain. It is the voice of self-pity. Why does this always happen to me? It is the voice of anger and blame. How could they do this to me? It's all their fault. It is the voice of despair. I will never get over this. My life is ruined. This second arrow of mental proliferation is what transforms a simple, painful feeling into a long-term state of suffering. The Buddha taught that the path of wisdom is not about avoiding the first arrow, which is impossible, but about cultivating the skill to not shoot the second one. The practice of observing Vedana is precisely this. It is the art of feeling the sting of the first arrow, the raw, physical sensation of pain, sadness, or anger, and allowing it to be there, without reacting, without tensing against it, and without shooting the second arrow of narrative, blame, and catastrophic thinking. You learn to let the initial pain be exactly what it is, an impersonal, energetic event in your body, without multiplying its power 100-fold with the stories of your mind. When you can watch these waves of feeling with this calm, scientific curiosity, you learn something incredible directly from your own experience. You see that no feeling is solid or permanent. You watch the heavy tightness in your chest morph into a warm tingling, which then might fade away completely. You see a hot flash of anger arise, intensify, and then dissolve into nothing, all by itself, if you don't feed it with your thoughts. You are proving the universal truth of impermanence to yourself in the laboratory of your own body. Feelings, you realize, are just energy. They are just information. They are not you, and they are not your enemy. By learning to watch them without fear and without attachment, you strip them of their power to command your life. They are no longer your masters. And once you see that you don't have to obey them, you can learn to do something even more profound. You can learn, with grace and wisdom, to simply let them go. Having anchored ourselves in the breath and learned to witness the raw energy of our feelings, we arrive at a pivotal moment in our journey. We arrive at the instruction that is perhaps the most frequently given, yet most profoundly misunderstood, in all of spiritual and psychological advice. The simple, maddening injunction to let it go. For anyone caught in the grip of a powerful obsession, these words can feel dismissive, invalidating, and frankly, impossible. It can feel like being told to stop bleeding from a fresh wound. How can you simply let go of something that has its hooks so deep inside you? The wisdom of the Buddha offers a radically different perspective. In this path, letting go is not a single, forceful act of will, like throwing a heavy object away from you. It is not an act of suppression, of pushing thoughts down into the basement of the mind, where they only fester and gain strength. Nor is it an act of becoming cold, callous, or indifferent. True letting go is a gentle, compassionate, and wise non-action. It is the natural consequence of seeing things clearly. The Pali word often used is nekkhamma, which is typically translated as renunciation. But a more helpful way to understand it is as a release from obsession, a movement toward freedom, born not of force, but of wisdom. Imagine that your obsessive thoughts about this person are a blazing bonfire. Each time you actively engage with the thoughts, each time you replay a conversation, analyze a past event, fantasize about a different future, or stoke the flames of your anger and resentment, you are picking up another log and throwing it onto the fire. You are actively feeding the very thing that is burning you. You do this because you mistakenly believe that by engaging with the fire, by analyzing its every flicker, you can somehow control it or get something from it. From this perspective, letting go is not about finding a special bucket of water to douse the flames. That is an act of struggle, of fighting. Instead, letting go is the simple, conscious, and repeated decision to stop throwing logs on the fire. It is not an action, but a cessation of action. It is the act of noticing your hand as it reaches for another log of rumination, and choosing, in that moment, to let your arm relax and drop to your side. It is withdrawing the fuel supply. When you stop feeding the fire, you don't need to do anything else. It will, on its own, naturally begin to diminish. Its roaring flames will soften to a gentle glow, its intense heat will cool, and eventually, it will return to harmless, quiet embers. Your work is not to fight the fire, but simply to stop feeding it. This practice requires a subtle but profound shift in attitude, from one of control to one of gentle allowance. Think of your mind as a house with a front door. When you are indulging in obsession, you throw the door wide open, invite the painful thoughts inside, serve them tea, and engage them in a long, dramatic conversation that lasts for hours. When you are trying to suppress your thoughts, you are frantically trying to barricade the door, pushing against it with all your might as the thoughts bang and shout from the outside, which is exhausting and ultimately futile. There is a middle path. The path of letting go is the path of allowing the thoughts to arrive on your doorstep without inviting them inside. A memory of that person knocks on your door. You can look through the peephole and say, "Ah, I see you." It is the memory of that day in the park. You acknowledge its presence calmly, without fear or excitement. But you do not have to open the door. You don't have to engage. You simply let it stand there, knowing it cannot come in unless you invite it. You return your attention to the feeling of your breath, to the sounds in the room, to the life that is happening inside your house right now. The thought may knock for a while, but eventually, when it receives no energy and no engagement from you, it will wander away on its own. This is the art of allowing things to come and allowing them to go. We can see this even more clearly with another metaphor. Imagine that the painful memory or the obsessive thought is a piece of burning hot coal. The mind, in its confusion, has picked up this coal and is clutching it in a tight fist, believing it to be a precious diamond. You are screaming in pain, wondering why your hand is burning so terribly. You might blame the coal. You might blame the person who gave you the coal. But the immediate, direct cause of the burning is your own clenched fist. The suffering is not in the coal itself. It is in the act of clinging to it. Letting go, in this context, is the dawning of a simple, luminous insight. The pain is coming from my own fist. It is the realization that the only way to stop the burning is to open the hand. This is not an act of aggression. You don't have to violently throw the coal across the room. It is a simple, wise, and profoundly kind act of release. It is an act of supreme self-compassion. You simply decide, I will no longer burn myself. You relax the muscles. You open your fingers, and the coal simply drops away. The relief is instantaneous. The haunting persists because we are still, unconsciously, clenching our fist around the burning coal of the past, unwilling to release it. There is a famous story that illustrates this tragic tendency of the mind perfectly. In some parts of the world, hunters have a clever method for trapping monkeys. They take a coconut or a gourd, make a small hole in it just large enough for a monkey's open hand to fit through, and place some rice inside. They then secure the coconut to the base of a tree. A monkey, driven by its desire, will come along, smell the rice, and slip its slender hand into the hole. It will grasp a big, satisfying fistful of rice. But now, when it tries to pull its hand out, it can't. Its clenched fist, full of rice, is too large to pass back through the hole. The monkey is now trapped. It is bound to the coconut, shrieking and pulling, frantic and terrified. Freedom is one simple, easy action away. All it has to do is open its hand, let go of the rice, and it can slip its hand out and run free. But its craving, its attachment, its clinging to that handful of rice is so powerful that it will not let go, even as the hunter approaches. It chooses captivity and ultimately death over the simple act of releasing its prize. We must look at our own minds with the same compassionate honesty. What is the handful of rice that you are refusing to let go of? Is it the story that you were the victim? Is it the need to be proven right in your version of events? Is it the faint, flickering hope that if you just think about them enough, they might magically reappear? Is it the comfort of a familiar sadness, which feels safer than the unknown emptiness of moving on? Like the monkey, we are often trapped not by the situation itself, but by our own desperate clinging to the prize in our fist. Our freedom is literally in our own hands, waiting for us to have the wisdom to open them. What gives us this wisdom? What allows us to see that the prize we are holding is actually the cause of our imprisonment? It is the direct, experiential, and undeniable insight into the fundamental nature of reality itself. It is the wisdom that understands that the handful of rice, the burning coal, the memory, the feeling, and even the I who is clinging, are all subject to one universal law, the law of change. To truly and effortlessly let go, we must first deeply understand the truth of impermanence. We have now learned to watch our feelings with a calm, dispassionate eye, and we have touched upon the wisdom of letting go not as a forceful action, but as a gentle cessation of feeding the fires of obsession. But to truly and effortlessly open our clenched fist, we need more than just technique. We need a profound shift in our perception of reality itself. This shift comes from the deep, experiential understanding of one of the universe's most fundamental laws, the law of anicca, or impermanence. Anicca is the first of what the Buddha called the three marks of existence. It is not a belief to be adopted, but a characteristic of reality to be observed, as fundamental and inescapable as gravity. It is the simple, radical truth that everything, without a single exception, is in a constant state of flux. The great galaxies are expanding and dying. Mountains are slowly being weathered into dust. The seasons turn. Our own bodies are in a continuous process of decay and renewal, with cells dying and being born every second. And most relevant to our suffering, our thoughts, our emotions, and our very consciousness are the most fleeting and ephemeral phenomena of all. Nothing is static. Nothing is permanent. Everything is a river. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus said, "You cannot step into the same river twice." The Buddha would add that you are not even the same person who steps into the river. At the very heart of the obsession that haunts you is a declaration of war against this universal law. It is a profound act of resistance against the nature of reality. When you cling desperately to a good memory of that person, you are trying to build a dam in the river of time, attempting to hold back the flow and live forever in a single gilded moment that is already gone. When you are tormented by a painful memory, you are resisting the fact that the river has moved on, demanding that it flow backwards to change a past that cannot be changed. You are like a person standing on the shore, screaming at a wave, demanding that it hold its perfect form forever. It is a futile, exhausting, and heartbreaking struggle. The core of your suffering does not come from the fact that things have changed. It comes from your fierce, relentless, and ultimately hopeless resistance to that change. You are at war with the universe, and it is a war you can never win. The way to peace is not to fight harder, but to lay down your arms and learn to see this universal flow in every aspect of your life. This is a practice of deep contemplation. Begin, as always, with your breath. Notice how each breath is a perfect, self-contained lesson in anicca. An in-breath arises from nothing. It sustains your life for a brief moment, and then it dissolves back into nothing, making way for the next. You will never again, in your entire life, breathe this exact same breath. It is a unique, unrepeatable event. Bring this awareness into your body. Can you find a single sensation that is absolutely permanent? The tingling in your hands, the warmth in your chest, the beating of your heart all are in a constant state of vibration and change. A feeling of heaviness arises in your stomach. Watch it. Does it not shift, change its texture, and eventually dissipate? An itch appears on your arm. It feels demanding, but if you simply watch it, does it not also fade away on its own? You are observing impermanence directly. Now, turn this insight toward the mind itself. Your thoughts, which feel so solid and important, are like clouds racing across the sky. Where was the thought of that person one moment before it appeared? Where does it go when it vanishes? It arises, it captures your attention, and it passes. If you don't grasp it, it simply flows by. The heavy emotion of sadness that accompanies it feels so solid, so all-encompassing, like a block of lead in your heart. But observe it as you would observe the weather. Does it not have subtle shifts in intensity? Does it not sometimes feel sharp and other times feel like a dull ache? It, too, is a process, not a permanent entity. Now, with this understanding, apply this wisdom to the person you are obsessed with. The person you hold in your mind is a static photograph, a fixed image from the past. But the real person, the living human being, is a flowing river. They are not the same person they were a year ago, or even yesterday. They have had new experiences, thought new thoughts, felt new feelings. They are constantly changing. The relationship you are clinging to is also just a memory, a snapshot of a particular way two rivers, yours and theirs, flowed alongside each other for a time. That particular confluence has passed. The rivers have changed course. To cling to the memory is to deny the living reality of the river. For many, the first encounter with the truth of impermanence can bring a sense of fear, sadness, or even nihilism. If nothing lasts, what is the point? The ego, which builds its entire identity on seeking permanent security, is terrified by anicca. But this initial fear masks a profound and liberating truth. Impermanence is not a tragedy. It is the ultimate source of your hope. Because everything is impermanent, your pain is not a life sentence. The heavy blanket of grief that you feel will smother you forever is, by its very nature, temporary. The sharp, piercing anger that feels as if it will burn for 1,000 years will, inevitably, change. The obsessive thought that feels like a permanent squatter in your mind is just a passing cloud. Anicca is the universe's guarantee that you can be free. It is the law that ensures all storms must pass, all wounds can heal, and all suffering must come to an end. There is a beautiful story that illustrates this wisdom. The great Thai meditation master, Ajahn Chah, was known for his simple, direct teachings. One day, he held up a beautiful glass, one he used every day. He said to his students, "For me, this glass is already broken. I enjoy it. I drink water from it, and it is clear and beautiful. But I know that its nature is to break. Sooner or later, the wind will knock it over, or my hand will slip. So I enjoy it fully in the present, but I am always aware of its impermanent nature." He continued, "When it does eventually break, I will not be upset. I will simply say, 'Of course.' But a person who does not understand impermanence will see it shatter and cry out, 'Oh no, my beautiful glass is broken.' They will suffer terribly." Your attachment to a person or a relationship is often like an attachment to an unbroken glass. You live in a state of denial about its fragile, changing, and impermanent nature. The moment of loss or separation was the moment your glass shattered on the floor. The suffering you feel is the cry of "my beautiful glass is broken." The shock and despair that comes from believing it should have, and could have, lasted forever. The practice of contemplating anicca is the practice of learning to see the glass as already broken. This does not make you cold or unloving. On the contrary, it allows you to love more fully and freely, to appreciate the beauty of the glass in this moment, without the constant, underlying terror of its inevitable loss. This deep investigation into the changing nature of everything around us and within us leads to a final, startling, and world-shattering question. If my body is in constant flux, my feelings are a fleeting weather pattern, and my thoughts are like writing on water, then who is this I that is claiming to be the owner of all this change? If every component is impermanent, can there be anything permanent at the center? This question dissolves the very ground beneath our feet and points us toward the most liberating insight of all, the truth of no self. We have journeyed deep into the workings of the mind. We have seen how it clings, how it creates stories, how it is bound by cause and effect, and how it exists in a universe of ceaseless, radical change. Each step has brought us closer to freedom. Now, we arrive at the final frontier of this inner exploration, at the most profound, challenging, and ultimately, the most liberating teaching of all. It is the insight that sits at the very pinnacle of Buddhist wisdom, the key that unlocks the last and most heavily fortified door of our mental prison. This is the wisdom of anatta, or no self. At first, the concept of no self can sound terrifying. It might evoke images of annihilation, of ceasing to exist, of becoming a nihilistic void. It is crucial to understand that anatta does not mean that you do not exist. You are clearly here, reading these words, breathing this air. Rather, it means that you do not exist in the way you intuitively feel you do. It is a direct challenge to our deepest, most cherished assumption. The belief that somewhere inside of us, behind our eyes and between our ears, there sits a solid, stable, continuous, and independent I who is the thinker of our thoughts, the feeler of our feelings, and the master of our destiny. Anatta reveals that this central CEO, this permanent soul or self, is a magnificent illusion. There is a classic Buddhist text that illuminates this with brilliant clarity, the dialogue between the Greek king Melinda and the sage Nagasena. The king, a sharp intellectual, approaches Nagasena and asks his name. The sage replies that he is known as Nagasena, but that this is merely a designation, a convenient label, and that there is no permanent person to be found here. The king is baffled and challenges him, saying that if there is no person, who is it that wears the robes, eats the food, and studies the teachings? Nagasena responds with a question of his own. He asks the king how he arrived, and the king says he came by chariot. Nagasena then begins to deconstruct the chariot. "Your Majesty," he asks, "is the chariot the wheels?" "No, venerable sir," the king replies. "Is it then the axle, or the frame, or the reins, or the yoke?" To each question, the king answers. Nagasena continues, "Is the chariot then all of these parts combined?" "No, sir." "Is it perhaps something entirely separate from these parts?" "No, sir." Nagasena then concludes, "Then, your Majesty, for all your searching, you cannot seem to find the chariot." Chariot is simply a convenient name, a conceptual label we apply to a temporary assembly of various parts. When the wheels, axle, and frame are put together in a certain way, we call the resulting function chariot. Then, Nagasena turns this piercing logic back on himself. In the same way, Nagasena is a conventional designation for a temporary collection of components. It is a label for the assembly of the body, the feelings, the perceptions, the thoughts, and the consciousness. But if you search for a separate, permanent Nagasena within or apart from these components, it cannot be found. This is the heart of the teaching of Anatta. The self that you believe you are is a convenient label for a bundle of 5 fluctuating processes, known in Buddhism as the 5 skandhas or aggregates. Let us look at our own chariot. The first aggregate is form your physical body, a collection of skin, bones, and organs, all changing, all borrowed from the earth. The second is feeling the raw sensations of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral that we have already explored, fleeting waves that arise and pass away. The third is perception, the mental faculty that recognizes and labels things, like seeing the color red and identifying red. The fourth is mental formations. This is the busiest aggregate, containing all of our thoughts, our opinions, our biases, our intentions, our moods, our habits. And the fifth is consciousness, the raw faculty of knowing, the awareness that is conscious of a sight, a sound, a thought, or a feeling. These 5 processes are all that we are. There is no I standing behind them, owning them, or directing them. The I is simply the label we give to the synergistic functioning of this bundle. And as we have already seen, every single one of these 5 aggregates is profoundly impermanent, constantly in flux. So if all the components are changing, where is the permanent self? The practice of seeing Anatta is a practice of direct investigation. The next time you are swept up in the painful obsession and the familiar thought arises, "I am so heartbroken, I can't stand this pain," pause and ask, with genuine curiosity, who is this I that is heartbroken? Go through the aggregates. Is it your body that is heartbroken? No. Your body is just experiencing physical sensations like tightness in the chest or a lump in the throat. Is it the feeling itself? No. The feeling is just an impersonal wave of energy passing through. Is it the perception? No. That is just a label. Is it the thought? No. A thought is just a momentary sound in the mind, a puff of smoke. Is it consciousness? No. Consciousness is just the knowing of these other things. You search, and you search, and you search for this solid, wounded I, and you cannot find it anywhere. There is pain, yes. There are thoughts, yes. There are memories, yes. But a central, solid self, who is the victim of all this, it is nowhere to be found. This failure to find the self is the great success of the practice. This insight is the ultimate solvent for our suffering. The entire drama of your obsession, the hurt pride, the sting of rejection, the burning anger, the gnawing loneliness built upon the premise of a solid, separate me that can be attacked and wounded. When this belief in a solid self begins to dissolve, the entire structure of suffering crumbles with it, for it has lost its foundation. If there is no permanent me to be slighted, who is there to hold a grudge? If there is no separate self to be abandoned, who is there to feel lonely? If there is no real target, where can the arrow of a harsh word or a painful action possibly land? It is like an arrow shot into an empty sky. The person's actions, and your memories of them, become like events happening in an open field, with no one there to take them personally. The haunting becomes a ghost wandering through a house that has no owner. The suffering has lost its subject. This is not an intellectual game. It is a profound shift in perception that cuts the very root of the clinging mind. The ego, the I-maker, is a defense attorney for a client who doesn't actually exist. Its whole job is to protect and defend this fictional self. When you see through the fiction, the attorney has no one to defend. The courtroom becomes empty. The frantic, self-centered activity of the mind begins to calm down, because it has lost its organizing principle. When we truly, deeply see that the separate self is an illusion, our entire relationship to the world transforms. The tight, anxious knot of me, my story, my pain begins to loosen. And when that self-centered knot unravels, a new energy, a new way of being, can finally emerge. It is an energy that does not depend on what others do for me or how they make me feel. It is a spacious, open-hearted way of being that sees other people not as props in my drama, but as fellow collections of changing processes, also seeking happiness and avoiding suffering. Having deconstructed the fictional self, we are now ready to build a new world, one based not on the needs of a phantom one, but on a foundation of boundless and unconditional loving kindness for all beings, starting with the very collection of processes we call ourself. Having journeyed to the profound and stark insight of anatta, or no self, we might find ourselves in a vast, open, and perhaps even unnervingly empty space. We have deconstructed the chariot and found no permanent driver. We have unmasked the ego and found a phantom. This emptiness, this seeing through the illusion of a separate self, is the foundation of liberation. But wisdom in the Buddhist path is often described as having two wings, like a bird. The first wing is emptiness and insight prajna. The second wing, equally essential for flight, is love and compassion, metta and karuna. Having emptied the cup of the self, we must now learn what to fill it with. We fill it with metta, or loving kindness. Metta is a Pali word that is often translated as love, but it is a love radically different from the conditional, romantic, or transactional love we usually speak of. It is not a love that says, "I will love you if you make me happy." It is not a love that grasps, possesses, or demands. Metta is an unconditional, benevolent, and boundless goodwill. It is a warm, radiating wish for the true happiness and well-being of any and all beings, without exception and without expectation of anything in return. It is the gentle, steady warmth of the sun, which shines on the saint and the sinner, the flower and the weed, with equal generosity. Metta is the direct antidote to the poisons of anger, resentment, jealousy, and fear. It is the balm that soothes the contracted, defensive state of a wounded heart. In the grip of an obsession, particularly one born of loss or rejection, the heart is anything but open. It is a fortress, locked down to protect itself from further pain. The mind is filled with self-criticism. Why am I so weak? Why can't I just get over this? Or with resentment for the other person, or both. Therefore, the practice of metta must begin in the last place we often think to look, with ourselves. You cannot offer a thirsty person a drink from an empty well. The first and most essential step in healing is to turn this radiant warmth of loving kindness inward. This can feel awkward, even indulgent, at first, but it is the most necessary act of spiritual first aid. The practice is simple and gentle. Finding a quiet moment, you can place a hand over your own heart to create a physical sense of warmth and connection. And then you begin to softly, silently repeat phrases of goodwill directed at yourself. The classic phrases are, "May I be safe, may I be healthy, may I be happy, may I live with ease." You can adapt these phrases to whatever feels most resonant for you. May I be free from this obsessive suffering. May I be at peace. May I learn to trust myself. May I be kind to myself in this pain. The point is not to just mechanically repeat the words, but to try and connect with the sincere intention behind them. For a few moments, you suspend all self-judgment and simply offer yourself the same kindness you would offer to a beloved friend or a small child who is hurting. You are becoming your own unconditional friend. You are reparenting yourself, giving your wounded heart the acceptance and love it so desperately needs but cannot receive from the outside world. This is not narcissism. It is the necessary act of filling your own well, so that you have something to give, and so that you no longer seek desperately for others to fill it for you. Once you have established some foundation of this warmth for yourself, even a flicker, you can begin the truly transformative and sometimes challenging practice of expanding the circle of metta. After wishing yourself well, you bring to mind a person for whom you feel easy, uncomplicated respect and affection, a dear friend, a beloved pet, or a respected teacher. You hold their image in your mind, and you extend the exact same wishes to them. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you live with ease. You try to genuinely feel this wish for their well-being, letting the warmth of your heart radiate outwards. Now comes the most radical and healing step. When you feel ready, you gently bring to mind the image of the person who has been the source of your obsession and pain. Before you do anything else, acknowledge the feelings that may arise: the pain, the anger, the resistance. See them, allow them. And then, as an act of profound spiritual courage and a strategy for your own freedom, you attempt to extend that same simple wish of metta to them. Just as I wish to be happy, may you also be happy. May you be safe. May you be free from suffering. This is not an act of condoning their harmful behavior. It is not a sign of weakness. It is not about wanting to resume the relationship. This practice is entirely for your benefit. Holding on to anger and resentment is like holding a burning coal in your hand with the intention of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. The act of offering metta is the act of opening your hand and dropping the coal. It is a declaration that you will no longer allow your inner peace to be contingent on another person's actions, past or present. It is recognizing them through the lens of wisdom, not as a monster, but as another confused being, also trapped in the cycles of ignorance and suffering, also seeking happiness in flawed and often unskillful ways. By wishing them well, you cut the energetic cord of resentment that has bound you to them, and you set yourself free. This practice is a form of deep alchemy. It literally rewires your brain. Currently, the neural pathways in your mind associated with that person are linked to the painful feeling tones of grief, longing, and anger. Every time you think of them, you activate this pain circuit. The practice of metta creates a new neural pathway. You begin to associate their image with the pleasant, spacious feeling tones of warmth, goodwill, and peace. You are overriding the old, painful software with new, healing code. The memory of the person, which was once a reliable trigger for your suffering, now becomes a prompt for your practice. Their face appears in your mind, and instead of spiraling into pain, it becomes a bell of mindfulness, reminding you to return to a state of boundless love. The poison is transformed into medicine. There is a powerful story from the life of the Buddha that illustrates this principle perfectly. The Buddha's jealous cousin, Devadatta, conspired to have him killed. He arranged for a notoriously fierce and wild elephant named Nalagiri to be intoxicated with alcohol and set loose on the narrow lane where the Buddha was walking. As Nalagiri charged, trumpeting with murderous rage, the earth trembled and people screamed and fled in terror. The Buddha's own disciples urged him to run. But the Buddha stood his ground, perfectly calm and serene. He did not prepare to fight, nor did he shrink back in fear. Instead, he radiated a powerful, invisible field of pure, unconditional metta directly at the charging elephant. The chronicles say that as the elephant entered this field of loving kindness, a miraculous change occurred. Its drunken rage could not survive in the face of such overwhelming, peaceful energy. Its steps slowed. The fury in its eyes softened. Its raised trunk lowered. It approached the Buddha, no longer a weapon of terror, but a humble creature, and knelt down before him. The obsessive thought, when it arises with its full, intoxicating power, is the raging elephant Nalagiri. It charges at you, filled with the energy of anger, grief, or desperate longing. Our usual instinct is to either fight it, which is futile, or to run from it, which is impossible. Metta is the third, and only effective, way. You meet the raging energy not with an opposing force, but with a greater, softer, and more powerful energy of your own. You meet the thought with boundless warmth and acceptance. You tame the wildness of your own mind not through struggle, but through love. Metta is the great healer of hearts, the wish for all beings, including yourself and your adversaries, to be happy. It is the first wing of compassion. But as your heart softens and opens, you will become aware not only of the universal wish for happiness, but also of the universal reality of pain. When your loving kindness encounters the suffering of another being and gives rise to the heartfelt wish for them to be free from that suffering, it transforms into a distinct, though deeply related, quality. This is the birth of boundless compassion, or karuna. As the gentle, unconditional warmth of metta begins to soften the hardened soil of the heart, a new capacity begins to emerge. Metta, loving kindness, is the heart's response to the universal wish for happiness. But as our awareness grows more sensitive, we become attuned not only to the potential for joy, but to the pervasive reality of pain, both in ourselves and in others. The heart's response to the direct side of suffering is karuna, or compassion. If metta is the sun, karuna is the gentle rain that washes away the dust of resentment and blame, allowing true healing to begin. It is the second great wing of the awakened heart. Karuna is often translated as compassion, but we must be careful to distinguish it from a near enemy that masquerades as a virtue, pity. Pity is a feeling that looks down from above. It creates and reinforces separation. When we feel pity, there is a subtle, often unconscious, satisfaction in it. Oh, that poor person, we think. I am so glad I am not in their situation. Pity reinforces the ego. It solidifies the boundary between me, the fortunate one, and you, the suffering one. Compassion, or karuna, is the complete opposite. It is the heart's tremor in the face of suffering. It is a feeling that looks across from a position of shared equality. It does not create distance, it dissolves it. The language of compassion is not your pain, but this pain, it is born from the profound insight of anatta, the recognition that at the fundamental level of our vulnerability to suffering, we are not separate. Karuna says, I know this feeling. The ache in your heart is made of the same substance as the ache in mine. Pity is a subtle poison that maintains the illusion of separation. Compassion is the powerful medicine that reveals our interconnectedness. In the context of your haunting, the practice of compassion involves a radical shift in perspective. Up until now, your focus has likely been on the pain that person has caused you. The practice of karuna invites you gently to contemplate the pain within them. This is not an exercise in excusing harmful behavior. It is an exercise in understanding the roots of that behavior, for your own sake. Find a quiet moment, ground yourself in the breath, and bring the image of that person to mind. Instead of replaying the tapes of your own hurt, try to look at them with the eyes of a compassionate investigator. Ask yourself, what suffering might have driven their actions? What fears? What insecurities? What deep-seated feelings of inadequacy might they be carrying? What confusion or ignorance what the Buddha called avijja might have led them to believe that their actions would bring them happiness, even when those actions caused harm? Perhaps their inability to commit was born from a deep fear of intimacy. Perhaps their harsh words were a clumsy defense mechanism, a shield for their own fragility. When you begin to look in this way, their actions cease to be a calculated, personal attack on you. Instead, they become tragic symptoms of their own inner turmoil, their own unresolved suffering. When you see this, a new wish can arise, not from a place of weakness, but from a place of profound strength and wisdom. May you be free from the deep suffering that causes you to create more suffering for yourself and for others. May you find the peace that you are so clearly seeking in such unskillful ways. This is the first step. The second step is to widen the lens of compassion until it becomes universal. You turn your attention back to the pain in your own heart. Feel its texture, its weight, its specific flavor of sorrow. And now, recognize that this very same ache is a fundamental note in the symphony of human existence. At this very moment, on this planet, millions of other hearts are breaking. Millions of other people are staring at a silent phone, feeling the hollow ache of loneliness. Millions are wrestling with the sting of betrayal or the slow burn of regret. Throughout all of human history, billions of souls have navigated this exact same terrain. Your pain is not a sign of your personal failure. It is your initiation into the great fellowship of human sorrow. It is your membership card to the shared experience of being alive. When you see this, the isolating prison walls of your personal story begin to dissolve. The ego loves to believe that our suffering is special, unique, and more intense than anyone else's. This belief is a cage. Universal compassion shatters this cage. You realize you are not alone in your pain. You are deeply, profoundly connected to everyone through it. Your broken heart is a bridge, not a barrier. The most poignant illustration of this truth is the story of a woman named Kisa Gotami. Her young son had died, and she was consumed by a grief so powerful that it bordered on madness. Denying his death, she clutched his small, lifeless body and went from house to house, desperately seeking medicine that could revive him. Some people mocked her, others turned away in pity, but no one could help. Finally, she was sent to the Buddha. She laid her son at his feet and pleaded, "Can you make him well?" The Buddha looked at her with eyes of immense compassion and said, "There is only one thing that can help. Go into the village and bring me back a single mustard seed from a house where no one and no child, no spouse, no parent has ever died." Filled with a surge of desperate hope, Kisa Gotami ran to the village. At the first house, she asked for the mustard seed. Of course, the woman said, "But my beloved husband died just last year." Kisa Gotami went to the next house. "We have plenty of mustard seeds," the man there told her, "but we are still grieving the loss of our parents." She went from door to every single house in the village, and the story was always the same. Every family had been visited by death. Every heart knew the pain of loss. As the sun began to set, the truth dawned on her. Her personal, isolating agony, "My child is dead," transformed into a vast universal understanding. We all suffer loss. Death is a part of life. Her grief was no longer just her own. It was the grief of the world. She returned to the Buddha not with the mustard seed, but with a quiet, transformed heart, ready to understand the true nature of suffering and its cessation. You are Kisa Gotami. The loss of this relationship, the death of the future you imagined, is your dead child. You have been running through the village of your mind, clutching this loss, desperately seeking a medicine to reverse it. The practice of compassion is the Buddha's instruction. Go and find a heart that has never been broken. Go and find a life that has never known loss. And you will find, as she did, that there is no such thing. Your pain is not a wall that separates you. It is a gateway that connects you to the heart of humanity. This is how Karuna heals. It dissolves the toxic, ego-driven narrative of us versus them. The other person is no longer the villain who inflicted a unique wound upon poor, innocent me. They are simply another suffering being, and you are another suffering being, both caught in the same intricate web of cause and effect. This insight drains the story of its dramatic, personal charge. The sharp edges of resentment soften, because blame has no place to stand in a world of shared suffering. Having cultivated metta, the wish for all beings to find happiness, and now karuna, the wish for all beings to be free from suffering, we have developed two powerful wings of a compassionate heart. We have addressed our own pain and the pain of others. But a more subtle challenge can arise. What happens when the person who hurt us appears to be thriving? What do we do with the sting of envy or the feeling of injustice? For this, we must cultivate the third of the four sublime states, a quality that is the direct antidote to jealousy. We must learn to rejoice in the good fortune of others. This is the practice of mudita, or sympathetic joy. We have walked the path of the open heart, cultivating metta, the boundless wish for all beings to be happy, and karuna, the compassionate tremor in the face of their suffering. These practices soften the defensive shell of the ego and connect us to our shared humanity. They are powerful antidotes to resentment and blame. But the heart's training is not yet complete. There remains a subtle, piercing challenge. a scenario that can reignite our pain when we least expect it. What happens when the person who is the source of our haunting, the one we associate with our own deep pain, appears to be happy? What do we do when we see them on social media, smiling, thriving, perhaps with a new partner? In that moment, the heart can be flooded with a toxic cocktail of emotions: the bitter sting of injustice, the green fire of envy, the gnawing feeling of being left behind. To heal this final painful reaction, we must cultivate the third of the four sublime states, a quality that is perhaps the most difficult, yet one of the most liberating. We must learn the art of mudita, or sympathetic joy. Mudita is the practice of feeling genuine, unselfish joy in the happiness, success, and good fortune of others. It is the polar opposite of jealousy and envy. While metta wishes for others to find the seeds of happiness, mudita celebrates when those seeds have sprouted and blossomed. It is a heartfelt congratulations to the universe whenever it bestows a gift upon someone else. It is a radical celebration of joy, wherever it may be found, without asking, "But what about me?" Let us be honest, this practice is not easy. It runs contrary to the ego's deepest programming. The ego, the I-maker, operates from a place of scarcity and comparison. It believes that happiness is a finite resource, a cosmic pie with only so many slices. If someone else gets a large slice, especially someone we feel has wronged us, the ego believes there is less for us. It feels a sense of lack, of unfairness. The thought process is simple and poisonous. I am suffering because of what they did. Therefore, their happiness is an insult to my pain. It is not right. This sense of injustice, while understandable, is a golden chain that keeps you shackled to them. As long as their happiness has the power to cause you pain, you are not free. You are still allowing their life's narrative to write the script for your own emotional state. Mudita is the sharp, decisive act of cutting that final chain. Like the other practices, the cultivation of mudita is a gradual training of the heart. We do not start with the most difficult task. We start by priming the pump of joy where it flows most easily. Take a moment and bring to mind a person you love dearly, someone whose happiness brings you uncomplicated joy, a close friend, a beloved child, a sibling. Now, imagine they have just received wonderful news. They achieved a lifelong dream. They found a deep and fulfilling love. They overcame a great struggle. Feel the genuine smile spread across your face. Feel the warmth that blooms in your chest. That feeling of pure, selfless happiness for them, that is mudita. Savor it. Become intimate with its texture. This proves to you that you are capable of feeling it. Next, you expand the circle to someone more neutral, an acquaintance or a colleague. You hear they received a promotion or had a wonderful vacation. Can you offer them a simple, silent "I'm happy for you"? Can you feel a small spark of joy at their good fortune, without the immediate shadow of comparison? This is like stretching the muscle, increasing its range of motion. Now, we approach the great challenge. Only when you feel stable and grounded, you gently bring to mind the person who has been haunting you, and you learn that something good has happened to them. Your first reaction will likely be a clenching, a feeling of bitterness or pain. Do not judge this reaction. Meet it with the compassion you have been cultivating. Acknowledge the pain. Ah, the feeling of unfairness is here. I see you. Then, when you are ready, you perform the practice as a conscious, strategic act for your own liberation. You can say it as an intention in your mind. You have found a measure of happiness. May you enjoy it. May it last. I find joy in your joy. At first, this may feel artificial. You may not feel it at all. But you are planting a seed. The intention itself has power. You are telling your own mind, I refuse to be a prisoner of envy. I choose freedom. You are deliberately severing the link between their well-being and your own suffering. This is the ultimate declaration of emotional sovereignty. You are taking back the power you gave them to dictate your happiness. You are announcing to the universe that your peace of mind is no longer up for negotiation based on the circumstances of another person's life. The great alchemy of mudita is that it transforms your entire world from a place of scarcity to one of boundless abundance. If you can only be happy when good things happen to you, your opportunities for joy are statistically quite limited. You will spend most of your life waiting. But if you can train your heart to feel joy whenever anyone experiences happiness, you have just unlocked an infinite source of well-being. A couple laughing on a park bench becomes a source of your joy. A story of a stranger's success becomes a source of your joy. A child delighting in an ice cream cone becomes a source of your joy. The world is no longer a competition. It becomes a magnificent feast of happiness, and you are invited to partake in every single dish. A beautiful, everyday example of mudita can be seen in the heart of a loving parent. Imagine a mother and father who have poured their lives into raising their child. The child grows up, becomes a wonderful, successful adult, falls deeply in love, and announces that they are moving to the other side of the world to start their new happy life. In that moment, the parent's heart feels two distinct things. There is the very real, personal pain of loss. I will miss you more than words can say. The house will feel empty. This is their personal, ego-based feeling. But this feeling is held within, and often transcended by, a much larger, more powerful emotion, a profound, selfless joy for the child. I am so incredibly happy that you have found this joy and success. Your happiness is my happiness. This ability to have one's own personal pain be secondary to the joy one feels for another's good fortune is the essence of mudita. By cultivating mudita, we develop a heart that is truly expansive and resilient. It becomes a heart that cannot be easily wounded by comparison or envy. With metta, we have a loving response to the potential for happiness. With karuna, we have a compassionate response to the reality of suffering. With mudita, we have a joyful response to the flowering of success and good fortune. We have developed a heart that knows how to respond skillfully to all the major dramas of life. Yet, there is one final quality needed to bring all of these into perfect, unshakable harmony. Metta, karuna, and mudita are all active, engaged states. They lean into the world. But to be truly free, we need a fourth quality that provides the deep, stable foundation upon which these other three can rest. We need a quality that allows us to face gain and loss, praise and blame, success and failure with the same calm, unwavering balance. This quality is the crowning jewel of the four sublime states. It is the profound and peaceful poise of upekkha, or equanimity. We have now explored the three radiant, active expressions of the open heart. Metta, the loving wish for all to be happy. Karuna, the compassionate wish for all to be free from suffering. And mudita, the selfless joy in the good fortune of others. These three qualities are like the brilliant, beautiful dancers of the heart, moving and responding to the world with grace and warmth. But for any dance to be sustainable, there must be a firm, stable stage upon which it can unfold. Without this stage, the dancers would become exhausted, unbalanced, and overwhelmed. This stage, this fourth and final sublime state, is upekkha, or equanimity. It is the crowning jewel of the four, the quality that brings them all into perfect, unshakable harmony. Equanimity is a state of profound mental balance and poise. It is crucial, however, to understand what it is not. It is not a cold, stony indifference. It is not a numb apathy or a deliberate suppression of feeling. That is the equanimity of a dead heart. True upekkha is radiant and alive. It is a spacious, non-reactive awareness that is born from deep wisdom. Imagine a vast, deep mountain lake, so still that its surface perfectly reflects the sky above. It reflects the brilliant white clouds of a summer day just as clearly and calmly as it reflects the dark, turbulent storm clouds of a coming tempest. The lake is not stained by the dark clouds, nor does it try to cling to the bright ones. It simply allows all weather to be reflected in its depths without being disturbed. The mind of equanimity is this deep, clear lake. Upekkha is not something we can force upon ourselves through sheer will. We cannot simply command our minds. Be balanced. It arises naturally as the fruit of the wisdom we have been cultivating. It is rooted in our deep, experiential understanding of the truths we have already explored. When you truly see and feel the reality of impermanence, anicca, in every moment, how can you be excessively elated by praise or utterly devastated by blame? You see them for what they are: fleeting sounds, vibrations in the air that arise and pass away. When you truly penetrate the illusion of a solid self and see the truth of no self, anatta, how can you take things so personally? If there is no solid separate me to defend, who is there to be inflated by fame or crushed by disrepute? The target for life's arrows vanishes. And when you understand the workings of karma, seeing that all beings, including yourself and the person who hurt you, are simply heirs to their own actions, reaping what they have sown, a profound, non-judgmental acceptance begins to dawn. You see that their harmful actions were not born in a vacuum, but arose from a complex web of their own past causes and conditions, their own ignorance and suffering. This doesn't excuse the harm, but it removes the intensely personal sting of it. This deep seeing is the fertile ground from which the great tree of equanimity grows. The practical training ground for upekkha is in observing what the Buddha called the 8 worldly winds. These are the 8 conditions that constantly blow through our lives, pushing and pulling our minds off balance. They come in 4 pairs of opposites: pleasure and pain, gain and loss, praise and blame, and fame and disrepute. An unawakened life is a constant, exhausting struggle with these winds. We spend all our energy desperately trying to run toward pleasure, gain, praise, and fame, while frantically trying to run away from pain, loss, blame, and disrepute. Because these winds are, by their nature, uncontrollable and impermanent, our inner peace is always precarious, always dependent on the next gust. The practice of equanimity is learning to stand like a mountain in the center of these winds, allowing them to blow past without being knocked over. Let us apply this directly to the haunting that has been our focus. When a memory of the person you are obsessed with arises, it will inevitably bring one of these winds with it. Perhaps it is a blissful memory of a happy time together. This is the wind of pleasure. The mind's habit is to immediately grasp at it, to cling to it, to fall into a craving for the past and a sorrow that it is gone. The practice of equanimity is to meet this pleasant memory with a balanced mind. You can acknowledge a pleasant feeling has arisen. You can even enjoy its sweetness, but without clinging. You simply add the wisdom of insight. This is impermanent. This arose due to conditions, and it will pass away due to conditions. You let it go without a struggle. Conversely, a painful memory arises, the memory of a harsh word, of their leaving. This is the wind of pain. The mind's habit is to immediately resist, to push it away with aversion, to get lost in stories of anger and victimhood. The practice of equanimity is to meet this unpleasant feeling with the same balanced mind. You acknowledge an unpleasant sensation is here. You allow it to be present in your body without tensing against it. And you remind yourself with gentle confidence, this too is impermanent. This will pass. You are not denying the pain, but you are refusing to be defined by it or to multiply it with your reaction. You are the calm center of the storm. The most potent metaphor for a mind cultivated in upekkha is that of a great ancient mountain. Imagine this mountain, its peaks reaching into the clouds. Over the millennia, it has endured everything. The fierce gales of hurricanes have howled around it. Torrential monsoon rains have lashed its slopes. The scorching sun of summer has baked its rocks, and the deep, heavy snows of winter have tried to bury it. The weather of the world is in constant, often violent, flux. But the mountain itself remains utterly still, majestic, and unmoved. Its deep, granite stability is not in the least affected by the transient phenomena playing out across its surface. The cultivated mind is this mountain. The 8 worldly winds are the ever-changing weather. The obsession, with its turbulent storms of grief, its lightning flashes of anger, and its brief sunny spells of happy memories, is just weather. The practice of upekkha is the realization that your true nature is not the weather, but the mountain. This reveals the secret of real peace. Lasting peace is not found by trying to control the weather. It is not a life where the sun always shines and the winds are always gentle. Such a life is impossible. True, unshakable peace is found by discovering the mountain of stability within you, the core of your being that is not touched by the passing storms. This is the nature of ultimate freedom. Your well-being is no longer for sale. It cannot be bought by another's praise or stolen by their blame. It does not depend on whether you gain or lose, or whether you are experiencing pleasure or pain. You have found a peace that surpasses all understanding, precisely because it does not depend on circumstances being understandable or agreeable. With the cultivation of metta, karuna, mudita, and now upekkha, the heart's training is complete. It has become a masterful instrument, capable of playing any note in the symphony of life with wisdom and grace. It is at once soft and strong, responsive and stable, engaged and serene. We have now established a profound inner foundation. With this new, integrated wisdom, we are ready to look outward again, to re-examine the actions of others, not as a victim, but as a wise observer. It is time to learn the simple, liberating lesson of the empty boat. Having cultivated the four sublime states of the heart-loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, we have constructed a profound inner sanctuary. Our heart is now both soft and strong, responsive yet stable. We are no longer so easily tossed about by the internal weather of our own minds. With this newfound stability, we are ready to engage with a teaching that can fundamentally shift our perception of the hurts we have received from others. It is a teaching that holds the master key to unlocking the prison of resentment and the story of personal injury. It is the simple, transformative wisdom of the empty boat. The parable, often attributed to the Taoist sage Zhuangzi but cherished in Zen circles, tells of a man who is enjoying a quiet moment, rowing his small boat on a misty river. All is calm and still. Suddenly, out of the thick fog, another boat bumps into his with a jarring thud. The man's peace is shattered. A flash of irritation instantly arises, which quickly hardens into anger. He begins to shout into the mist, cursing the careless person who has so rudely disrupted his tranquility. He yells insults, his voice filled with righteous indignation at the incompetence of this other rower. He is ready for a confrontation. But as he continues to yell, the mist begins to slowly clear. He looks over at the other boat and sees, to his astonishment, that it is completely empty. It had simply come untied from its mooring upstream and was drifting with the current. In that instant of seeing, the man's anger completely vanishes. It evaporates without a trace. It is impossible to be angry at an empty boat. He is left not with rage, but perhaps with a sense of foolishness, or simply with the practical reality of the situation. Two boats have bumped. He simply pushes the other boat away and continues on his journey, his peace restored. The wisdom of this story is profound and has everything to do with the haunting that occupies your mind. Let us diagnose what truly happened. Was the man's anger caused by the bump? Number. The physical collision was just a neutral event, a simple matter of physics. The man's anger was caused entirely by the story he instantly created in his mind. The story of a careless, inconsiderate, or even malicious pilot in the other boat. His anger was aimed not at the event, but at this fictional character he had invented. The moment the mist cleared and he saw that the boat was empty, the fictional pilot disappeared. And the anger, having lost its target, had nowhere to live. It simply dissolved. The entire emotional storm was a reaction to a phantom. Now, here is the teaching, in its most direct and challenging form. Every boat is empty. The person who hurt you, the person who betrayed you, the person whose memory haunts your waking hours and steals your sleep, is an empty boat. Of course, they have a body and a mind. But the pilot you are so angry with, the conscious, calculating entity you imagine, sat down and plotted a course specifically to harm you as a fiction, just as surely as the man's imagined pilot in the mist. This can be a difficult idea to accept, but it was so personal, the mind screams. They knew what they were doing. This is the voice of the wounded ego, which needs the story to be personal. The ego thrives on being the main character, the central protagonist in the drama of life, whether as the hero or the victim. The idea that the great injury done to me was, in fact, not really about me at all, is a mortal blow to the ego's sense of importance. But it is the price of freedom. If the other boat is empty of a pilot targeting you, then what is it filled with? It is filled with its own chaotic cargo. It is filled with that person's own unique collection of fears, their own unhealed childhood wounds, their own insecurities, their own profound ignorance, avijja, of the causes of true happiness. It is filled with the heavy, unstable baggage of their own karma. Their actions, the harsh words, the act of leaving. The betrayal were the inevitable result of this internal cargo shifting and crashing about inside their own vessel. Their boat, unsteered by wisdom and adrift on the powerful currents of their own conditioning, simply drifted into yours. The collision felt personal, but its causes were not. It was about the contents of their boat, not about the worth of yours. The practice, then, is to consciously and repeatedly apply this insight whenever a painful memory arises. When your mind begins to play the old movie of what they did and what they said, run the empty boat simulation. See their hurtful action not as a carefully aimed arrow shot directly at your heart, but as a piece of rusty, broken machinery falling off the side of their drifting, pilotless boat as it passed by. The machinery still hurt you when it hit, the wound is real, but the intent you have ascribed to it is a ghost. This practice involves reframing your fundamental question. You must abandon the ego's question. Why did they do this to me? This question will keep you trapped forever because it assumes a pilot and a target. Instead, you must ask the question of wisdom. What suffering, what confusion, what chaotic cargo in them could have possibly produced such an action? This question shifts you from the powerless position of a victim to the powerful position of a wise, compassionate observer. It takes you out of the drama and places you on the riverbank, watching two boats bump, one of which happens to be yours. You are not condoning their action. You are not saying the bump didn't cause damage. It did. You are not absolving them of responsibility. You are simply removing the poisonous, personal venom from the event. It is this venom, this story of personal attack, that causes the wound to fester and refuse to heal. The bump itself is a simple wound that can be repaired. The venom of "they did it to me" is what creates the chronic, obsessive infection. By seeing the other person as an empty boat, you reclaim your peace. You realize you have been shouting at an empty vessel in the fog for months, or even years. You see the absurdity and the exhaustion of it. You can finally stop yelling. You can push their boat gently away from yours and turn your attention back to your own journey, to rowing your own boat down the river of your own life. This wisdom allows you to finally find peace with the actions of others. But what of the damage that was already done? The bump left a dent. The initial impact created a landscape of suffering inside of you. We now have this inner poison to contend with. Is it just a tragic, useless byproduct of the collision? Or could it be something more? The next stage of our journey takes us into the heart of spiritual alchemy, where we learn that within our greatest poisons lie the seeds of our most powerful medicines. Having learned to see the other person as an empty boat, we depersonalize the injury. We understand that their actions arose from the chaotic cargo of their own suffering, not from a malicious intent to harm us. This brings a measure of peace, but we are still left with the aftermath. The collision has happened. Our own boat is damaged, and we are left with the internal poison of the memory, the pain, and the grief. Our natural instinct is to view this poison as a curse, a tragic and useless byproduct of the past that we must get rid of. But here, we encounter one of the most powerful and transformative principles in the Mahayana and Zen traditions: the understanding that the poison itself contains the antidote. This is the spiritual alchemy of turning poison into medicine. The Zen tradition teaches that samsara, the endless cycle of suffering and confusion, is not different from nirvana, the state of liberation. It teaches that the passions, the difficult emotions, the kleshas, are themselves the raw material for bodhi, or enlightenment. This is not just a clever philosophical phrase. It is a practical guide for working with our deepest pains. It tells us that the obstacle is the path. The problem is the solution. The very obsession that you believe is ruining your life is, in fact, the greatest spiritual opportunity you may have ever been given. Think of this painful haunting as a powerful, unflattering, but perfectly honest mirror. It is a gift wrapped in the terrifying paper of suffering. Without this experience, you might have gone through your entire life blissfully unaware of the true extent of your attachments. You might never have known the specific ways your ego feels threatened, the deep-seated fears of abandonment you carry, or the subtle ways you outsource your happiness to others. This person and the pain their memory evokes has become a relentless spotlight, illuminating every dark and unhealed corner of your inner world. It is showing you, with perfect, unwavering accuracy, exactly where you are not yet free. To wish for the pain to go away is to wish for the spotlight to be turned off, leaving you to stumble in the dark, unaware of your own chain. The practice, therefore, becomes a radical act of reframing. Instead of meeting the obsessive thought with the familiar internal groan of, "Oh no, not this again," you learn to meet it with a different energy. You learn to greet it as a teacher. When the familiar ache arises in your chest, you can whisper internally, "Ah, here is my teacher, reminding me that I am still attached to a feeling." When a surge of anger toward them flashes through you, you can acknowledge, "Ah, here is my teacher, showing me that my ego still feels wounded." When a wave of self-pity washes over you, you can note, "Ah, here is my teacher, revealing my belief that my happiness depends on the past." This changes everything. The obsessive thought is no longer an enemy to be vanquished. It becomes a bell of mindfulness, a personal, customized alarm clock for awakening, ringing just for you, reminding you to come back to the present moment, to come back to your practice. Thank you. You can even learn to say to the pain, "Thank you for showing me where I still need to apply the medicine of compassion. Thank you for reminding me of the work I have to do." This is not masochism. It is a profound mental jujitsu, using the energy of the attack to power your own liberation. The obsession is transformed from your jailer into your personal trainer. Furthermore, these painful emotions are sources of immense energy. Think of the sheer power contained in a fit of rage or a deep state of grief. It is a raw, vibrating, potent energy. Usually, we allow this energy to either burn us up internally through endless, circular rumination or to explode outwardly in harmful words and actions. The alchemical practice is to learn to harness this energy. Instead of letting it be a destructive forest fire, you build a power plant to channel it for your own benefit. When the intense energy of obsession arises, don't just passively endure it, use it. Let the intensity of the pain fuel the intensity of your practice. Let the thought, "The more this hurts," be completed with the phrase, "The more diligently I will return to my breath." Let the fire of anger be the fuel you use to practice metta with even greater force and determination. Go for a vigorous, mindful walk and feel that raw energy moving through your legs and connecting you to the earth. Use the agitation as a motivation to sit in meditation for 5 minutes longer than you thought you could. In this way, the energy that was once destroying you now becomes the very fuel for your journey to freedom. The most beautiful metaphor for this process is that of the lotus flower. The lotus is a universal symbol of purity, beauty, and spiritual awakening. It emerges from the water with pristine, perfect petals, seemingly untouched by the world below. But where does this exquisite flower come from? The lotus cannot grow on clean, polished marble. It cannot grow in sterile, purified water. For a lotus to grow, its roots must be plunged deep into the thick, dark, smelly, decaying mud at the bottom of the pond. This mud, the muck, the mess, the decay, is the very source of the nutrients that allow the beautiful flower to blossom. Without the mud, there can be no lotus. We all want the lotus flower of peace, happiness, and wisdom in our lives, but we want to avoid the mud. We want to avoid the messy breakups, the painful betrayals, the confusion, the grief. We want the flower without the dirt. The profound teaching of Zen, and of all deep spiritual paths, is that this is impossible. No mud, no lotus. This painful obsession, this messy, confusing, heartbreaking situation you are in, this is your mud. It is not a cosmic mistake. It is not a sign that you are flawed. It is your personal, nutrient-rich, sacred mud. It contains everything you need to grow the most beautiful flower of your own awakening. To reject your pain, to hate it and try to get rid of it, is to reject the very soil that can give you life. The practice of turning poison into medicine is the practice of learning to honor your mud. It is about gently turning toward your pain and asking, not "How can I escape this?" but "What is this here to teach me? What nutrients does this mud contain?" The greatest suffering, therefore, holds the potential for the greatest transformation. The obstacle truly is the path. Your pain is your curriculum. This internal alchemy is powerful and life-changing. It metabolizes the pain and turns it into wisdom. But to complete this process, to ensure that no toxic residue remains, there is often a final, formal act of release required. We must consciously address the lingering energetic and karmic charge we hold toward the other person, and just as importantly, toward ourselves. To fully transmute the poison, we must engage in the courageous and liberating work of forgiveness. Having learned to see the other as an empty boat and to transform the poison of our own suffering into a medicine for growth, we arrive at a final, crucial act of inner housekeeping. We have done the deep work of understanding, but a residual stain can remain on the heart. It is the stain of resentment, the bitter aftertaste of blame. To cleanse this final residue, we must engage in the often misunderstood, yet profoundly liberating, practice of forgiveness. Let us begin by demolishing the myths that make this practice seem impossible. Forgiveness, in the context of this spiritual path, is not about condoning the other person's harmful actions. It is not about saying, "What you did was okay." It is not about forgetting the past, nor does it necessarily mean you must reconcile with them or allow them back into your life. Forgiveness is not a gift you give to the other person. It is the ultimate act of self-love, a gift you give to yourself. It is a pragmatic, and in the best sense of the word, selfish act, undertaken for one reason only: to set yourself free. Holding on to unforgiveness, clinging to anger, resentment, and the desire for justice or revenge is like drinking a cup of poison every single day and hoping that the other person will die. The only person who is harmed, the only person who feels the corrosive effects of the poison, is you. Unforgiveness is a prison cell that you build for yourself, brick by painful brick. Its bars are forged from your own recycled anger. Its lock is your own stubborn righteousness, and you are simultaneously the prisoner and the jailer. You believe you are punishing the other person by holding on to your anger, but you are only ensuring that they continue to occupy prime real estate in your mind, living rent-free in your head, shaping your emotions long after they are gone. As long as you actively hate someone, you are still in a relationship with them. It is a toxic, painful, and draining relationship, but it is a powerful energetic connection nonetheless. The cord that once bound you in attachment has simply been replaced by a cord of animosity. You are still dancing with their ghost. Forgiveness is the act of taking a sharp pair of scissors and decisively cutting that final toxic cord. It is a declaration of independence. It is you saying, "I will no longer allow the past to poison my present. I will no longer allow my inner state to be defined by you. I am withdrawing my energy from this painful dynamic. I am taking my life back." It is the true and final act of uncoupling. There is a simple story that illustrates the painful absurdity of unforgiveness. A man is walking down a road, wincing with every step. A friend sees him and asks what is wrong. The man opens his hand and reveals that he is clutching a blackened, searingly hot rock. His palm is raw and blistered. "It hurts so much," the man cries. "Someone back there on the road handed this to me, and it's burning my hand." The friend looks at him with compassion and asks a simple question. "Then why are you still carrying it?" The man looks down at the rock in his own hand as if seeing it for the first time. "You are this person." The painful event in the past was the moment someone handed you the hot rock. The person who handed it to you is long gone down the road, but you have continued to clutch the rock, burning your own hand, all the while complaining about the person who gave it to you. The suffering, right now, is not coming from the past event. It is coming from your present moment choice to keep holding on. Forgiveness is the simple, intelligent, and sane act of realizing that your hand is burning because you are clenching it, and making the choice to open your hand and let the rock drop. This is not just a metaphor. It is a practice. It is an inner ritual of release that you can perform for yourself. Find a time when you can be quiet and undisturbed. Ground yourself in the stability of your breath. Acknowledge that this process may be difficult and that it is okay to feel resistance. The practice has 3 essential parts. The first part is offering forgiveness to the other person. Bring their image to mind. Allow yourself to feel the pain they caused, without judgment. Acknowledge the harm fully. Then, from a place of deep intention for your own freedom, silently say the words in your heart. for all the pain and harm you have caused me. Whether you did so knowingly or unknowingly, I now offer you my forgiveness. I do this not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to be at peace. I will no longer carry the burden of this anger. I release you. You may need to repeat this many times, like a gentle mantra, letting the intention behind the words do its work. The second part, which can be surprisingly powerful for dissolving the ego's sense of victimhood, is asking for their forgiveness. Gently reflect on the dynamic of the relationship. In any way, however small, that you may have contributed to the suffering with your own unskillful words, actions, or thoughts, you silently form the intention. For any harm that I may have caused you, whether knowingly or unknowingly, I ask for your forgiveness. This is not about taking the blame. It is about acknowledging the shared, imperfect humanity of the situation and humbly letting go of your own righteousness, which is one of the heaviest burdens of all. The third, and often most difficult and most important part, is offering forgiveness to yourself. You have likely spent months or years judging yourself, criticizing your own heart for not healing faster. This is the moment to offer yourself profound grace. Silently say to yourself, "For holding on to this pain for so long, I forgive myself. For judging myself and for believing I was somehow flawed or broken, I forgive myself. For abandoning myself in moments of pain, I forgive myself. For not knowing how to let go sooner, I forgive myself." You can place a hand on your heart and truly let this sink in. You are releasing yourself from your own inner tyrant. You are welcoming yourself home. Forgiveness is not a one-time event, it is a practice. You may need to drop the hot rock many times a day. But each time you do it, your grip becomes a little looser. Each time you perform this inner ritual, you wash away a little more of the stain on your heart. It is the ultimate act of clearing the ground, of cleansing the inner landscape so that new, beautiful things can finally have space to grow. Having engaged in this profound act of release, we find ourselves standing on a new ground of freedom, the chains of resentment broken. But this new territory requires careful navigation. The mind, accustomed to its old habits, can easily swing from one extreme to another, from the obsessive indulgence in memories to a new, rigid attempt to suppress them entirely. To walk this path of freedom with skill, grace, and stability, we must now learn the supreme principle that governs the entire Buddhist path. We must learn to walk the middle way. Having cleansed the heart through the profound act of forgiveness, we find ourselves standing on a new, clearer ground. The heaviest chains of resentment have been broken. Yet, this new freedom is delicate. The mind is a creature of habit, and its old pathways are deeply grooved. In this newfound space, we face a critical challenge, navigating between two dangerous and seductive extremes. On one side lies the swampy marsh of indulgence, the temptation to wallow in the past. On the other lies the brittle, icy cliff of suppression, the attempt to violently erase it. To walk skillfully toward lasting peace, we must learn to tread the Buddha's most foundational teaching, the Majjhima Patipada, the middle way. The middle way is not a weak compromise or a lukewarm 50% effort. It is a path of supreme intelligence and dynamic balance, a razor's edge of wisdom that avoids the two traps that perpetuate all of our suffering. Let us examine these two traps in the context of our own haunting. The first extreme is indulgence. This is the path the mind naturally takes when it is obsessed. It is the act of actively dwelling on the memories, both pleasant and painful. It is spending hours scrolling through old photographs, rereading text messages, listening to that one song on repeat. It is the bittersweet torment of fantasizing about what could have been, or the righteous fire of replaying arguments in your head, winning them this time. While it can feel compelling, even strangely comforting in its familiarity, every single act of indulgence is like pouring gasoline on a fire. You are consciously reinforcing the neural pathways of obsession. You are deepening the very grooves of attachment that are causing you pain. Each time you indulge, you are picking at the scab of a wound, ensuring it can never truly heal. It is a cycle of self-injury disguised as remembrance. When the pain of indulgence becomes too great, the mind often reacts by swinging violently to the opposite extreme. Suppression. This is the gritted teeth approach of "I will not think about them." It is the anger that arises at yourself for having a memory. It is the forceful attempt to block thoughts, to push them down, to white-knuckle your way through the day. This approach is born of a noble desire for freedom, but it is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of the mind. Trying to suppress a thought is like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It takes immense, exhausting effort, and the moment you relax your guard, the ball erupts to the surface with even greater force. This is a well-known psychological phenomenon. If you try with all your might not to think of a white bear, your mind will be filled with images of white bears. Suppression creates a state of intense inner conflict, a war against yourself. It is a path of tension, frustration, and inevitable failure. The Buddha, in his own search for enlightenment, explored both of these extremes. He spent years as a prince living a life of sensual indulgence, and he found it empty and unsatisfying. He then spent years as an ascetic, practicing extreme self-torment, starving his body and pushing his mind to its limits, and he found this too only led to more suffering. His great awakening occurred when he discovered the middle way, a path of wisdom that transcends both. The perfect illustration of this teaching is the story of Sona Kolavisa, a monk who had been a gifted musician in his lay life. Sona was practicing with extreme, unbalanced effort, meditating so intensely that his feet began to bleed, yet his mind was not finding peace. He grew disheartened and considered giving up and returning to his old life. The Buddha, knowing his thoughts, visited him and asked a simple question. "Sona," he said, "in your life as a layman, were you not skilled at playing the lute?" "Yes, Lord, I was," Sona replied. The Buddha then asked, "And what would happen, Sona, if you tuned the strings of your lute so they were excessively tight?" Sona answered, "The strings would snap, Lord, and the lute would not play." "And what would happen," the Buddha continued, "if you left the strings too loose and slack?" "They would produce no sound, Lord, or only a dull thud." The Buddha then delivered the crucial teaching. In the very same way, Sona, energy that is too strained and effort that is too tense leads to restlessness and agitation. And energy that is too slack and effort that is too lazy leads to dullness and torpor. Sona, you must tune the instrument of your practice. Find the middle way. Cultivate an energy that is balanced, not too tight and not too loose, and your mind will be ready to awaken. This ancient wisdom speaks directly to our struggle. The mind of suppression is the lute string that is tuned too tight. It is rigid, tense, and full of struggle. It is bound to snap, leading to burnout and a feeling of failure. The mind of indulgence is the lute string that is too loose. It is slack, unfocused, aimless, and produces only the dull, repetitive thud of suffering. The middle way is the practice of finding that perfect resonance, that state of being that is both alert and relaxed, both mindful and at ease. So, how do we tune this instrument in our daily life? The middle way is the very practice we have been cultivating throughout this journey, now seen through this clarifying lens. A thought or memory of the person arises. You do not follow it down the rabbit hole, replaying the story. That is the loose string of indulgence. You do not scream, "Get out of my head," and tense up against it. That is the tight string of suppression. Instead, you practice the middle way. You notice the thought has arisen, with a clear and gentle precision. You acknowledge its presence without judgment, as if nodding to a person passing on the street. And then, with skillful ease, you gently release your attention from the thought and guide it back to the present moment, to your breath, to the feeling of your feet on the floor, to the task at hand. It is a dynamic balance of effort and release. It requires the effort of mindfulness to notice when you have been carried away by a thought. But it requires the ease of wisdom to let it go without a struggle. It is not a passive zoning out, nor is it a frantic battle. It is an active, engaged, and compassionate process of moment-to-moment tuning. You are not trying to create a silent mind. You are learning to find the peace that exists within the mind's natural flow of activity. Walking the middle way is the most sustainable and effective path to lasting freedom because it ends the inner war. It brings a halt to the violent swings between clinging and aversion. As you practice this, your mind naturally becomes less reactive. It becomes more spacious, more clear, more like that deep, calm mountain lake. And in this newfound clarity, In this stillness born of balance, an even deeper perception of reality becomes possible. You begin to see through the artificial walls that your mind has constructed between me and you, between subject and object, between the one who is suffering and the one who is remembered. You are now prepared to glimpse the seamless, interconnected, and ultimately unified nature of all experience. You are ready to explore the profound wisdom of the non-dual mind. Having learned to walk the razor's edge of the middle way, our minds have found a new and profound stability. We no longer swing violently between the extremes of indulging in our memories and suppressing them. We have discovered a path of balance, of alert relaxation. From this stable ground, we are now prepared to take the final leap in understanding, to explore an insight so deep that it dissolves the very foundation upon which our suffering is built. We are ready to investigate the nature of the non-dual mind, the entire architecture of your obsession. The very story that has caused you so much pain is built upon a fundamental, unexamined assumption. It is the assumption of duality. Duality is the belief that reality is composed of separate, independent subjects and objects. In the case of your haunting, this duality manifests as the firm conviction that there is a solid, separate me right here, who is the subject, and a solid, separate them out there, who is the object. The whole drama is a story of the subject, I suffering because of the object, them. I miss them. I am angry at them. I cannot be happy without them. This perceived separation between the observer and the observed, the thinker and the thought, is the source code of your entire affliction. Non-duality is the master key that deletes this code. The wisdom of non-duality, called Advaya in Sanskrit, points to the ultimate nature of reality as a single, seamless, unified whole. It reveals that the separation we perceive between ourselves and the world is a construct of the thinking mind. A useful illusion for navigating daily life, but an illusion nonetheless. To grasp this, let us use the most classic and powerful metaphor, that of the wave and the ocean. Imagine a single wave rising on the surface of the vast ocean. This wave has a unique form, a specific height, and a certain lifespan. From its own limited perspective, it might look at the other waves and feel a sense of individuality. It might think, I am a small wave, and feel inadequate next to a larger one. It might think, I am a powerful wave, and feel a sense of pride. It might see the distant shore and feel a deep, existential fear of crashing, of dying, of its own end. This wave, with its story of separation, its hopes, and its fears, is a perfect metaphor for the human ego, for the I we believe ourselves to be. But at any moment, the wave can have an awakening. It can realize that its entire being, its very substance, is nothing other than water. It was never separate from the ocean. Its form was temporary, but its essence as water is vast, deep, and shared with every other wave. The distinction between me, the wave, and that, the ocean, was a perceptual error. In the moment of this realization, the wave's fear of dying vanishes. How can a wave die when its true nature is the entire ocean? It simply changes its form, returning to the source from which it was never, for an instant, truly separate. You are this wave, believing yourself to be a small, separate, and vulnerable self. Your true nature is the vast, boundless ocean of consciousness itself. Now, consider the thought of the person who haunts you. What is it? In the dualistic view, it is an other, an invader, a separate entity that attacks your mind. But from the non-dual perspective, that thought is simply another wave, arising from the very same ocean of consciousness that you are. It is made of the exact same water. It is a creative, energetic manifestation of your own being. The thought is not other than you. It is a movement within you. We can investigate this directly. Take any simple experience, such as hearing a sound. The dualistic mind immediately splits this into three components: a subject, I, an object, the sound, and an action, the hearing. But if you pay close attention, can you actually find these three separate pieces? Or is there just one, single, seamless event? Is there not just hearing happening? The I who hears cannot be found separate from the hearing. The sound has no existence independent of its being heard. The experience is non-dual. It is a single, unified phenomenon that the mind later chops up into concepts. Now, let us apply this radical inquiry to the obsession itself. The mind's story is, I am thinking about them. This creates the painful duality. But look closer. Can you find the I who is thinking, separate from the thought itself, or is there just thinking happening? Look at the image of the person that appears in your mind. Is it truly an external object that is invading your inner space? Or is it a creation, a vibrant painting made of the very fabric of your own consciousness? You are not being haunted by a ghost from the outside. You are creating the ghost, moment by moment, on the inside. The memory is not an attack, it is a manifestation of you. When this insight begins to dawn, the entire basis for inner conflict dissolves. The war ends because you realize you have only ever been at war with yourself. How can I be angry at a thought when the thought is seen to be a movement of my own mind? It is like the right hand being angry at the left hand. How can I desperately long for an image in my mind when I see that the image and the I who is longing are both made of the same conscious water? The painful gap between the subject who wants and the object that is wanted collapses. This is the ultimate peace. It is not a peace that comes from finally getting what you want, or from successfully pushing away what you don't want. It is a peace that comes from seeing through the illusion that there is a separate you who wants or doesn't want in the first place. The entire scaffolding of suffering, the hurt, the blame, the need, the rejection was built on the foundation of the subject-object split. When that foundation is removed, the entire structure falls to the ground, leaving only the open, spacious, and peaceful sky of pure awareness. This non-dual perspective is the view from the mountaintop, the ultimate context for all our practice. It reveals that the person you can't get out of your head was never truly separate from you to begin with. Their memory is a wave in the ocean of your mind. By fighting it, you were a wave fighting itself. By understanding it, you realize the unity of all experience. This sublime insight, often touched in moments of deep meditation, can feel transcendent and profound. But the true challenge and beauty of a path like Zen is not just to have peak experiences on the meditation cushion. It is to learn how to bring this mountaintop view down into the valley of your everyday life. How do you live this spacious, non-dual wisdom while you are washing the dishes, speaking with your family, or stuck in traffic? This is the great work of integrating the ultimate truth with our relative existence. This is the practice of living a Zen life. Having ascended to the mountaintop view of the non-dual mind, we have seen the ultimate truth of our interconnectedness, the illusion of the separate self. This insight is profound, spacious, and liberating. But we do not live our lives on a remote mountaintop. We live in the bustling, noisy, and often chaotic marketplace of everyday life. The great challenge and the singular genius of the Zen path is not to escape the marketplace, but to bring the wisdom of the mountain directly into it. How do we embody this freedom while washing the dishes, driving in traffic, or interacting with our loved ones? This is the crucial practice of Zen in daily life, where true, integrated liberation is forged. For many, there is a frustrating gap between formal meditation practice and the rest of life. We may find moments of peace and clarity while sitting on a cushion, only to feel it all evaporate the moment we face a stressful email or a difficult conversation. The ghosts of the past, quieted by the silence, seem to rush back in with a vengeance amidst the noise of the day. This happens because we create an artificial separation between practice time and real life. The core teaching of Zen is to dissolve this separation. Your life is not something that gets in the way of your practice. Your life is the practice. The kitchen sink is your new dojo. The office is your new monastery. The mind is addicted to the illusion of later. It tells itself, I will be peaceful after this project is finished. Or, in your case, I will finally be happy when I get over this person. Zen sees this as the fundamental error. Peace and freedom are not destinations you arrive at in the future. They are qualities of presence that can only be accessed in this very moment. The practice, then, is to bring your whole being, your entire, undivided attention, to the simple, ordinary moments of your day. There is a famous Zen teaching that encapsulates this entire philosophy in a single, profound instruction. When you wash the dishes, wash the dishes. Let us unpack what this truly means. The way we normally wash dishes is a perfect example of being absent from our own lives. Our body is at the sink, our hands are in the water, but our mind is anywhere but there. It is lost in the past, replaying the argument with the person who haunts us. It is lost in the future, worrying about a bill that needs to be paid. We are physically present but mentally and emotionally elsewhere. We rush through the task, seeing it as a chore to be completed on the way to something more important, something real that we believe is coming later. To wash the dishes in the Zen way is to transform the activity completely. It means you bring your entire being to the sink. Your mind, your body, and your breath are all united in one activity. You feel the warmth of the water on your skin. You see the iridescent rainbow colors in the soap bubbles. You hear the sound of the sponge scrubbing the plate. You smell the clean scent of the soap. You are not thinking about the past or the future. You are not trying to get the task over with. You are fully, 100% present with the simple, miraculous reality of washing the dishes. The purpose of washing the dishes is not just to get clean dishes. The purpose of washing the dishes is to be awake and alive while washing the dishes. This principle can be extended to every corner of your life. When you drink your morning coffee, do not just consume it while scrolling through your phone. Feel the weight and warmth of the mug in your hands. See the dark, rich color. Inhale the aroma before you sip. Taste the complex flavors on your tongue. For those 2 minutes, just drink coffee. When you walk from your car to your office, feel the sensation of your feet making contact with the ground, one step after another. Notice the rhythm of your body moving through space, the feeling of the air on your skin. Just walk. How does this simple, mundane practice solve the profound problem of a haunting obsession? It does so by engaging the fundamental nature of attention. Your mind cannot hold two things in sharp, vivid focus at the exact same time. It cannot be 100% absorbed in the sensory reality of the present moment, and, simultaneously, be lost in the conceptual story of the past. You do not have to fight the ghost of the memory. You simply have to become so profoundly interested in reality that the ghost finds no room to perform its drama. It is like trying to project a movie onto a wall that is already brilliantly illuminated by the sun. The projector is still running, but the image cannot be seen. By filling your awareness with the rich sensory data of the now, you leave no screen upon which the old movies of the past can play. Of course, the mind's habits are strong. You will be mindfully washing a dish, and suddenly their face will appear in your awareness. The familiar ache will start to bloom. Here, the practice is exactly the same as it was on the meditation cushion, only the context has changed. First, do not panic or judge yourself. This is not a failure. It is simply the mind doing what it has been conditioned to do. Second, acknowledge the thought gently. A simple, non-judgmental mental note. Ah, the memory has arisen, or just thinking. Third, and most importantly, you gently but firmly escort your attention back to the physical sensations of the present moment. You return your focus to the feeling of the warm water, the sound of your own breathing, the physical reality of the here and now. Each time you do this, it is a revolutionary act. Each gentle return to the present is a vote you cast for your own freedom. You are telling your nervous system, this memory is not an emergency. The real emergency is being absent from my own life. I choose to be here, now. Reality is always more powerful than memory. By repeatedly grounding yourself in the undeniable truth of your senses, you starve the ghost of the attention it needs to survive. The memory might still be there, like a faint radio playing in a distant room, but you are no longer actively tuned into its station. Your attention is fully engaged with the symphony of your own life, happening in this and every moment. The great secret of Zen is that there is no secret. Freedom is not hidden on a remote mountain or at the end of a 10-year retreat. It is hidden in plain sight, in the most humble and ordinary moments of your life, waiting for you to be present enough to claim it. True peace is not the permanent absence of the haunting thought. True peace is your unwavering ability to remain present, centered, and engaged with your life, even when the thought makes a guest appearance. You stop waiting for a magical future where the past has been erased, and you start living deeply in the only time you will ever have, right now. As you commit to living this way, day by day, moment by moment, you will begin to notice a profound shift in your relationship with the past. The old memories lose their sharp edges, their emotional charge. What was once a raw, bleeding wound that hurt every time it was touched, slowly, through the healing balm of your presence, begins to change. It is no longer an open wound. It becomes a scar mark that is still there, a reminder of a lesson learned, but one that no longer causes you pain. It becomes a testament not to your injury, but to your incredible capacity to heal. Having learned to walk the middle way, integrating the piece of the cushion into the flow of daily life, we begin to notice a profound and gentle transformation in our relationship with the past. The haunting begins to lose its power. The ghost that once dominated the entire house of our mind now seems like a faint, transparent visitor that rarely knocks, and when it does, we are no longer compelled to answer the door. This is the landscape of a healing heart, and to understand its topography, we must understand the crucial difference between a wound and a scar. For so long, you have been living with an open wound. Every memory, every song on the radio, every street corner you used to frequent together was like a rough hand touching that raw, exposed nerve. The pain was sharp, immediate, and debilitating. The wound was constantly infected with the bacteria of anger, resentment, self-pity, and regret. You were in a state of perpetual triage, feeling that the slightest breeze could cause you to start bleeding again. The central project of your life was simply to protect this wound, to manage its incessant, throbbing pain. The entire journey we have taken together through understanding attachment, ego, and impermanence, through cultivating compassion and forgiveness, through learning to stay present in the moment, has been a process of allowing this wound to finally heal. The healing process is not about pretending the injury never happened. It is about creating the inner conditions for the skin to slowly, patiently, knit itself back together. The result of this healing is not a perfectly smooth, unmarked surface. The result is a scar. A scar is a testament to the fact that a wound was once there. The memory of the injury remains, but the defining characteristic of a scar is that it does not hurt. You can press on it, and you feel only solid, healthy tissue. It does not bleed. It does not get infected. It is a silvery, quiet mark on your landscape, a reminder of a battle that has been fought, and, through wisdom and patience, won. It is a sign not of your brokenness, but of your incredible, innate capacity for healing and resilience. One of the greatest obstacles to this healing is the deeply felt, yet misguided, desire for a kind of spiritual amnesia. We think that freedom means completely forgetting the person, erasing them from our history as if they never existed. But this is a fantasy, and a harmful one at that. To try and force yourself to forget is an act of suppression, the tight string on the lute that is bound to snap. It creates an inner war. More importantly, to erase the memory would be to erase the profound lessons that the experience, however painful, came to teach you. Your greatest suffering has been your greatest teacher. It taught you about the nature of your own mind, about the depths of your attachments, about your need for compassion. Why would you want to forget the most important lessons of your life? The goal is not to get amnesia. The goal is to heal the wound. It is to keep the wisdom of the lesson while releasing the burden of the pain. It is to be left with a clean scar, not a gaping hole. Imagine a strong, beautiful tree standing in a forest. One night, a violent storm rages and a great limb is torn from its trunk, leaving a raw, gaping wound. For a time, the tree is vulnerable, but it does not die. It continues to do what trees do. It draws nourishment from the deep earth through its roots. It turns its leaves toward the sun, absorbing its light and energy. Slowly, over many seasons, a miraculous process unfolds. New bark begins to grow, creeping inward from the edges of the wound. It does not magically make the hole disappear. Instead, it grows over it, incorporating the damage into its own being. Years later, you would see a gnarled, unique, and beautiful pattern on the trunk. This is the tree's scar. The tree is not weaker for having been broken. In many ways, it is stronger. Its roots may have driven deeper into the earth to withstand the storm. Its form now has more character, more history, more interest. It is still a magnificent tree, not in spite of its wound, but in some ways, because of it. You are this tree. The relationship and its ending were the great storm. The initial obsession was the raw, open wound. Every practice we have discussed, every moment of mindful breathing, every offering of metta, every act of forgiveness has been you, the tree, consciously drawing nourishment from the earth of your practice and the sun of your own awareness. The healing is the slow, patient growth of new bark over the injury. The scar is the memory of the person and the relationship, now integrated into the whole of who you are. It no longer threatens your stability. It is simply a part of your rich and complex history, a testament to your resilience. When the healing is this complete, a new and surprising emotion can begin to arise as you look back on the experience. Gratitude. This is not a perverse gratitude for the pain itself. It is a deep, quiet gratitude for the journey the pain initiated. You can look back at the storm and say, "That was the event that forced me to learn about myself. That was the wound that taught me the necessity of compassion. That was the suffering that led me to seek a deeper kind of peace." You would not wish to go through it again, but you can be profoundly grateful for where it has brought you. This is the final act of alchemy, turning the lead of a painful past into the gold of present wisdom. This, then, is the true meaning of freedom in the aftermath of a haunting. It is not that you never think of the person again. It is not that their name never crosses your mind. True freedom is that when the thought does arise, it no longer disturbs your peace. A memory can float by like a cloud, and you can look at it with the calm, equanimous mind of the mountain and say, "Ah, that cloud," and then return your attention to the vast open sky. Their image can appear, and you can greet it with a gentle, dispassionate goodwill, and then continue on with your day, fully present and engaged with your own precious life. You have reclaimed your inner territory. The ghost no longer has a haunted house to return to, for the owner has finally, truly, come home. We began this journey together in a quiet, dark room, haunted by a ghost. It was the ghost of a memory, the echo of a voice, the relentless replay of a past that held the present moment hostage. We began in the cramped prison of obsession, feeling powerless, believing our peace was a treasure locked in someone else's keeping. We have traveled far since then, not across continents, but through the vast, intricate, and often misunderstood territory of our own mind. We walked a path of deep understanding, diagnosing the clinging nature of the mind and the frightened ego that so desperately holds on. We traced the unbreakable chain of cause and effect that turns a single sensation into a storm of suffering. And we uncovered the power we have, in this very moment, to plant new seeds of freedom through our own intentional actions. Then, we began the work of healing. We found our most loyal and steadfast friend, the simple anchor of our own breath, a refuge that is always available. With that stability, we learned to watch the turbulent waves of our feelings without being swept away. And we discovered the profound grace of letting go, not as a struggle, but as a wise and gentle release. We stood before the great truths of impermanence and no-self, and in their light, the solid-seeming walls of our suffering began to dissolve. We learned to fill the empty space of the ego with the boundless warmth of loving kindness, the deep resonance of compassion, the selfless delight of sympathetic joy, and the unshakable balance of equanimity. We learned to see the other as an empty boat, to alchemize our poison into medicine, to forgive for our own sake, and to walk the graceful middle way in our daily lives, until what was once a raw, bleeding wound became a quiet, painless scar. If there is one single truth to carry with you from this entire journey, let it be this: the problem was never truly the other person. The problem, and therefore the only possible solution, has always been within you. The peace you so desperately sought from their presence, their validation, or their return is, and always was, your own inherent nature. They were simply the mirror that life held up to you. A mirror that reflected, with painful clarity, your own attachments, your own fears, and ultimately, your own boundless capacity for wisdom and freedom. Do not see the time you spent in the grip of this haunting as a waste. See it for what it truly was, a fierce and sacred invitation. It was a calling from the depths of your own being, urging you to turn inward, to explore your own mind, to finally learn the art of being your own refuge. You now have the tools. You have the map. You understand that you are not the helpless victim of your thoughts, but the calm, spacious awareness in which thoughts are allowed to arise and pass away. This is not the end of a journey, but the beginning of a new way of living. It all begins, and always begins, right now. It begins not with a grand gesture, but with the simplest and most profound act available to you. It begins with one conscious breath. Let this be that breath. The journey to a healed and liberated heart starts now. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be peaceful and free.